My name is Nicholas Haskins, and I'd like a moment of your time to tell you about the 5th annual live stream for the cure. To do that, I brought along two people whom I couldn't do this event without, Gerald Morris and Dan Brennick.
Over the past 4 years, the live stream for the cure has raised over $30,000 for the Cancer Research Institute.
That contribution is helping to fund research into cancer immunotherapy, training the body's immune system to fight all forms of cancer.
This year, we're aiming for our biggest goal yet as we try to raise $15,000 in 50 hours on the air.
Tune in May 19th through the 23rd as we're joined live by podcasters and content creators from around the world.
With your help, we can continue the fight for a future immune to cancer.
Together, we can make a difference.
Hi there, I'm Lloyd.
And I'm John, and we're from Pint Comics. As we dive into your favorite pop culture topics, we may just
Occasionally
use language that could be considered
globaloney.
what? No, I mean
Oh, foul.
exactly offensive.
No doubt. Crass.
You bet your ass.
Sophisticated.
What? No. Anyways, you get it by now. It's mostly just
Gutter talk.
And one more thing. Watch out for spoilers. Sometimes we drop them like trousers. You've been warned.
Listen in.
Welcome to the Pint Movie Invitational Series.
Hey, yeah, you, get up. What are you, retarded? Get off the fucking car.
Hey, Dickless, get off the fucking car! Hey, fucksuck, get your slippery fucking ass off the car! Listen to me, get off the fucking car with your fucking ass!
Shut that cunt's mouth or I'll come over there and fuck start her head.
Welcome to the Pint of Comics podcast. I'm Lloyd, and across from me, through the Wi-Fi, is my co-host, the hardest working man in the podcasting community, the smartest dude I know, and possibly my partner in some alternative universe, John Amenta.
You know, I like
John.
Hello. I like the idea that if we were partners in another universe, that I'm the hardest man you know, because that means, because I picture you as being the bottom and me being the top. And
maybe I'm the trans. Who knows?
You might be. You might be. Who knows what we're doing here? Top, bottom, bitch, butch. We're just having fun. But yeah, no, it's great to be here tonight, and I'm very excited about our guests tonight.
Yeah, me too. The Illuminati of the Connecticut podcasting community, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, a couple of great guys. They've rejected all of our previous invitations to come on the show.
Geez, I wonder why. One guy's hard. Make sure you call me Carlos. Just want to remind you.
From the aptly named Mobile Horror Companion Podcast, we got Brian Spears and Carlos Danger. How are you guys doing tonight?
Go ahead, Brian. How you doing? Oh, good. We stepped on each other. We're off to a great start.
That's all right.
This is what it's normally like.
Yeah.
Hey, if you ever want to know how to say the name of our podcast, there's an easy way to remember.
Perfectly fine Mobile Horror Companion. If those of you that are into podcasts like to listen to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Mobile Horror Companion. We love you guys, man. I am so psyched to be here. This is Carlos Danger, by the way. I have wanted to come on for years now. Years, and it's finally happening.
I've been blocking you, but we finally got you on. You finally got you on. You've had me on and Lloyd on your show. I've said it before, you know it. I am a longtime fan of your show, going back to the Joe Greenberg era and continuing to the current incarnation, the Spears Danger era, I like to call it.
What's ironic about Joe wasn't even a fan of the Joe era. That's pretty good.
So you want to tell everybody out there what your podcast is about? I will say this, much like Pint of Comics, you have sort of a misleading name, but tell us what you talk about, what you guys do on your podcast.
Yeah, so it's the Mobile Horror Companion. You can follow us on Twitter at MobileHC666. And yeah, when we first started, we were a bunch of guys that met at horror conventions. You know, I mean, Brian and I have known each other since we were literally little kids, you know, in pre-K. But Brian is a special effects makeup guy. So we've had this interest in horror growing up our whole lives, and we would go to horror conventions starting in the 90s. You know, I'm 47, Brian's 52. So we have this history of just hanging out and renting out a room and talking to random people. And Joe Greenberg, the guy we mentioned, had this idea, hey, what if the drunk talk we have in hotel rooms, what if we start recording it and putting it out as a podcast? But yeah, you're right. There's only how much can you talk about, like, you know, Pint of Comics? You can only talk about comics for so much. You know what I mean? The pop culture landscape is massive. So we've expanded to talk about whatever we want to talk about, because this is America, John, and I don't care if you have a problem with it. I love this country. I love the First Amendment.
I have a problem with it.
Okay, so yeah, that's it. All right, I'll shut up. Brian, what about you? Spears?
I think, yeah.
I'm so nervous.
I mean, I think also the problem with Carlos and I is, like he said, we grew up together, so we have very similar tastes. And again, I work in film, and I did a lot of horror movies, and I love horror movies, but I love 12 horror movies, but I love them. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And I think Carlos and I have always been more interested in film and maybe even pop culture, not so much, like we like films, but we sort of like a certain type of film or a certain type of thing. And so our name, we've never liked our name. Yeah. And guess what? We never would have chose that. Like, I mean, and now we're also too lazy or we'd rather talk than figure out how to change a name and rebrand ourselves or redo this and redo that. And I don't know, maybe I don't listen to my podcast. I listen to you guys sometimes.
Oh, thank you.
But I'm not, so that's the thing, to start over or just to have fun with what we're doing. I also just love when we don't have a topic and just kind of go off the topic.
Well, I had an epiphany. I had an epiphany when we had you guys on the Pint of Comics, Lloyd and John, a couple of weeks back. We had you on the Mobile Horror Companion, and because sometimes I'm like, I'm afraid to share the episodes on my personal Facebook page. I'm scared how it might reflect on my day job or people in the community and things like that. So I'm always sort of shameful about it. But then, like, I had so much fun talking to you guys, just talking about movies. At the end of the day, the thing that unites us all is movies and or television. So I'm just so grateful at this age to have this outlet where I can just talk to you guys who are essentially strangers, although we've gotten to know each other a little bit over the last year or so. I think that's what's awesome. So just like that conversation, I had a sort of change of heart about what we're doing here, if that makes any sense. I've been a closet podcaster for about 3 years now, or 5 years, however long we've been doing this.
Right.
And for me, like, I don't get to see my buddy all the time. We used to at least, we're not exactly, it's not like we hang out weekly, but we would always get together. And like, so now at least it gives us an excuse to chat and catch up. And when you see the choice of the movie Carlos picked, we're macho men. So,
we're very manly.
I miss you. I miss hanging out with you. But like, listen, we met all at a horror convention.
And I'm flaccid, by the way.
I loved it. Like,
First of all, as a listener, I can tell anybody out there that listens to Pint of Comics to check out Mobile Horror Companion, because it's a great show. I sent Carlos a message a few weeks ago, and I meant it for real. I don't listen to a ton of podcasts because I just don't have the time. But the ones I do listen,
you're always recording.
Well, recording or working on mine or listening to the few I listen to. But I think Carlos is a great natural host.
I do too.
You guys have an incredible chemistry. It's what brings me back week after week. No matter what you're talking about, there are other podcasts that I listen to that sometimes if the topic might not be in my wheelhouse, I don't necessarily listen to that one right away, or I might put it off. You guys have an episode that goes to the top. And I think you don't need to rebrand any of that stuff. I get it. But I think if you guys were to ever focus on one type of film genre, I think the genre that Carlos picked for tonight's Pint Movie Invitational, which is kind of, I guess you could say, a crime thriller, that would be, I could see you guys being the mobile crime thriller companion because you talk.
That's even worse.
Really companion?
I didn't think the title could get worse.
No, I'm just throwing that.
I know
in
what you
there
mean.
to take horror out because you guys like literally you talk horror maybe once every 3 episodes, but
you
like
always say you don't even like horror,
right? Serpico and fucking Dog Day Afternoon and Heat and all these movies that are Scarface. They're always being referenced. So I think that's a great thing. I think that you guys are keeping a certain genre of film that might not even be that popular anymore. A certain era of film alive. That's my take on it.
You bet. You guys got a great rapport. I mean, you could tell that you guys were buddies. You guys could just go back and forth off each other very easy, very fluidly. You're great to listen to.
Thanks
and I don't
so
care
much.
that you're named horror. Come on, that's great.
All right. So Lloyd,
wait, we're moving on from the ass kissing. We're
gonna move on. We're gonna move on. I have enough of your asses on my lips at this point.
I feel bad.
Jeez, what kind of show is this?
Treasure to me. I love Judge Dredd. I absolutely love Judge Dredd.
Oh, I don't know what just happened there.
Are you gonna play sound bits on my show?
I'm just saying, yeah. Well, as soon as we bring up Arkansas, I'm going right to that Judge Dredd.
Arkansas,
I love Judge Dredd.
Arkansas is never gonna get mentioned, and I'm glad you got the name right this time. Anyways, besides that, we do have something we like to do before we get into the movie, and we'll let Carlos talk about the movie he picked and why he picked it, and then when you guys come back to do Brian's movie, we'll get into Brian's movie the next time we record. But Lloyd has a segment he calls 5 questions. He's going to ask you 5 questions, and you get to answer them. So Lloyd, what do we got this week for Carlos Danger?
And I'm not doing separate questions. You guys all get the same questions. You
All
can
right.
answer them. You could each answer them. All right, 5 easy questions. Here's the first one: Yahtzee or Scrabble?
Scrabble. Brian's dead. Are you frozen, Brian? What's going on there? I think Brian might be frozen. I've never played Yahtzee in my life. I don't even know how. So it's definitely
Really?
Scrabble.
I like Scrabble too.
I don't even think I've ever had a Yahtzee.
Yeah, that's what I said.
All right, Scrabble. Next one: Three's Company or One Day at a Time?
Jeez. I'm going to go with One Day at a Time, probably because it's the last one I watched. I remember them both vaguely as a kid. I can't really say I watched them religiously, but I seem to remember One Day at a Time being a part of my life longer than the other one because my mother would watch it. It would be on during the day, I think, in the reruns, and then it would be like as the world
3 o'clock in the
turns,
afternoon or something like that.
something like that. Yeah, I have vague memories of that.
Well,
so that's
Brian
that.
just dropped out for a sec. You'll be back.
I'm here. I would say One Day at a Time.
One Day
There
at
we
a time.
go.
All right, next one.
It's like the Newlywed Game. This is making me really uncomfortable. Me and Spears are getting all the right answers.
American Werewolf in London.
Yes,
or The Fly?
American Werewolf in London.
Oh, as a better movie?
As a movie
Yeah.
or as special effects?
Oh no. I guess I'd have to say American Werewolf in London.
Although he would go for The Howling over American Werewolf
Yes,
in London.
yeah.
I would
Well,
not.
you're a Howling guy. Yeah, I was going to put it against that actually, but I decided to go somewhere else.
The second choice was The Fly.
The Fly.
Okay.
Which is a great movie. That's a great movie too.
Yeah.
Bill Hicks or Bill Burr?
Bill Burr.
Bill Burr.
I'd have to say Bill Burr because I'm not as familiar with Bill Hicks, although I've watched some of his stuff on YouTube.
More, modern Bill Burr.
Yeah, he's got so much more attention. So I just.
But if
know
you would have
he's,
said Sam Kinison or Hicks,
My first one was Sam Kinison or Bill Hicks.
I would have said Kinison.
Yeah, because he beats everybody.
Or Patrice
I mean,
O'Neill.
who
I've
beats
been on a
Kinison?
Patrice O'Neill.
He's funny. Yeah, well, he was funny. Yeah.
I've been on a YouTube black hole of Patrice O'Neill the last couple of weeks.
I've been watching a lot of on Comedy Central on YouTube. This Is Not Happening. You ever see that?
I never saw that.
That's it's a great show. It's essentially stand-up comedians telling real life stories. So it's not an act. Stand-up comedians, they have a couple actors like Joe Rogan, he's a comedian, but I'm trying to think. There was a couple of actors. Henry Rollins does a couple, and it's just them telling crazy stories about their lives. It's usually 10 to 20 minutes long each. And check them out on YouTube. This Is Not Happening.
I've been watching old Colin Quinn Tough Crowd shows.
Those are
Colin Quinn. Yeah.
Those are something to sit through through today's lens. They're
Yes.
like, whoa, I can't believe this is on TV. At some parts of this movie that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Manser, what was the last
All right,
question?
One more. Tangentially related to what we're talking about tonight. Snatch or Thief?
Thief.
Yeah, Thief, hands down.
I mean, is there even like? Holy cow, dude!
Yeah, I'm offended you
some
asked
people
that.
love the Snatch, so you know.
We got hard dicks.
Gutter talk.
We got hard dicks and Snatch everywhere today.
Damn it! Oh man, my mother's definitely not listening to this one.
Just talking about the movie.
Hey, my theory. Can I just, before we get into Way of the Gun, can I give you my theory? The James Caan character. The James Caan character.
Well, why don't you introduce the movie first to the audience, what you picked and why you picked it, and then we'll start talking to that stuff.
Yeah, I picked Way of the Gun. Came out in the year 2000, written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie. First movie he made after he wrote and won an Academy Award for The Usual Suspects. I think that was in 95. I saw this in the theater back in the day. I don't remember exactly why I saw it in the year 2000. I was 2 years out of a 6-year college stint. You know, I was working at a weekly newspaper. I think I was doing movie reviews in addition to like government beat reporting. Right, Brian? Because I didn't see this with you, right, Brian?
No, man, I'm jealous you saw this in the theater, dude.
Yeah, I don't even know.
So jealous right now.
It kind of came and went, and I liked it. I remember liking it. And then when the DVD came out, I bought the DVD. And I don't buy DVDs, but this is one I made it a point to get. And over the years, I would loan it out to people. It was one of those movies where people would come as I got older, like living in an apartment. And I'm like, did you ever see this movie? And people would always be like, nope, here. And I would loan it out and get it back and loan it out and get it back. So, but I
loaned it out to your wife's former roommate, and I never freaking got it back. I even called about that.
Oh man,
I got something out of the deal. I got something out of the deal, so I'm not complaining.
Nice. How many times would you say you've seen this?
I'm like, not a ton of times. I mean, a theory I have about it is that if you approach this like it's a stoner movie, you'll have a positive experience guaranteed. So I've probably seen it 5 or 6 times over the years.
All right.
It's not like something I would watch religiously, but there's just something about it.
Memorable.
Some of the things it tries, I haven't seen before or since, and I always respected parts of the movie, you know. But I had no idea about the whole backstory too, because it's got a great backstory.
We'll get into that. Let's start off. We're gonna start off just by going through some of the credits of the film, and then we'll jump into the movie and we'll get into theories and backstories. We got plenty of time. We're gonna cover all the bases.
Oh, he covered almost all of your notes.
He did, but I'm gonna still go over the little things he didn't. So Way of the Gun was released on September 8th of 2000, written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie. He is a writer-director. This was his first directorial film. He has written, without directing, films such as co-wrote The Usual Suspects, as Carlos said. The upcoming Top Gun 2 Maverick is a Christopher McQuarrie film. Valkyrie. So this guy has a history with the boo-worthy Bryan Singer. That's not great, but whatever.
And Tom Cruise, yeah.
And Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
He has directed and written Jack Reacher, the first one, not the second one, and he is currently on a run of Mission Impossible 5 through I think 8, because I think they're doing 7 and 8 at the same time. So he's writing, and he's wrote 5 and 6, which are already out, and he's doing 7 and 8, which have been obviously pushed back a little bit. If you heard on the YouTube's Tom Cruise's famous rant about the masks, and he's going to fire Brian Spears, who was probably the guy on set there that wasn't wearing the mask. And
never. That's actually not me, man.
Pissed off TC to no extreme. So yeah, this came out September 8th, 2000. So yeah, this is a 20 at this point 1-year-old movie.
Yeah.
Can I just just add one credit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's also, and I don't know, Carlos might know more than I do, but he's a notorious script doctor.
Well, he's not notorious.
Well, I mean,
he's a script doctor.
Rogue
One.
Yeah.
Yes, he helped.
But I don't know for what he does. Just more than Rogue One. He's touched a lot of movies.
I mean, I won't. He made Jack Reacher. There was a 12-year period where he didn't direct a single film. There was a 7-year period, all after Way of the Gun. He did nothing. Yeah. This movie wasn't exactly good for his career.
Well, I mean, and there's a quote from him that he says that he's super proud of Way of the Gun, but does it have its faults? Absolutely. He knows that it wasn't the movie he maybe set out 100% to make. And we'll get into that, and obviously we'll get into our personal ratings and feelings about it too. But yeah, he's made it a point to say, yes, are there issues with this movie? Sure. But did I make a movie that I'm proud of? Yes. but you're right. He kind of disappeared for a while after this. He also wrote with Bryan Singer that Jack and the Giant Beanstalk thing. So he's not, everything he's touching ain't gold for sure, but he's doing that. So Lloyd, why don't we get into the cast of this thing real quick?
Well, we got Ryan Philippe as Parker, the main protagonist, very non-sympathetic protagonist character. I guess he packed on 25 pounds of muscle to get this role.
I did that for this episode of the podcast.
Yeah, and it shows. It shows.
Thank you. Very much.
He really tried to get this. They didn't want him. I guess
not at all.
Macquarie and Del Toro, Benicio Del Toro, did not want him, but he really stuck it.
Well, do you know what happened too? He said, "You have to let me at least go out to dinner with you," and he said, "I don't want to be a movie star. I want to be an actor."
Yeah,
he wanted to kind of change his career path.
I believe Chris McQuarrie was not during The Usual Suspects was like, "Why do they hire this guy Benicio? What's he gonna?" And then he saw what he brought to it, and he thought in his head like, "I wouldn't have given Benicio that job on The Usual Suspects, so maybe Ryan coming to me like coming to me like that and saying I'm gonna be this guy in the movie," because he said he was looking at someone else. I don't think he's ever named.
He has. All
right. I would love to know who it is.
Matt Dillon or Matthew McConaughey.
Oh wow,
okay.
That would not have worked. Well, maybe Matt Dillon, but
yeah, I could see Matt Dillon.
I can see McConaughey. I can see McConaughey.
I cannot.
I got a question. I got a question for Carlos, who's picked this movie. Now, since we've been talking about dicks and snatch and all this stuff, what size dick do you think Ryan Philippe has in his mouth while he's talking through this whole thing? Like, what is? I don't know enough.
Sir, that's more than a loaded question. That's more than loaded and leaning. I disagree with your premise.
What I'm trying to say is that he's kind of got a mouthful. Am I the only one that saw this in this movie? Is that
no? The director addresses it on the. There's a great commentary for this movie that Macquarie does with the composer, and they bring that up, and Macquarie claims that I don't know what people are talking about. That's the way the guy talks. I don't see a difference. But then if you watch red carpet interviews that whatever his name, what's his name? Felipe? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
That
He's
he
from
did
Philly.
That he did for the movie. He doesn't have quite the. I think he was going for, it's that he's been compared like he was trying to do the sort of an Al Pacino thing, 70s era Pacino when he could act.
He's definitely going for something there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But guess what, guys? He's amazing. I will bring it up. I'll bring it up later, but he's amazing in this and probably the best he's ever been in a movie. So
saying he's amazing in this is one thing. Saying the best he's ever been is kind of a hard knock because what has he done? Honestly, he
MacGruber.
Okay.
You're right. But I think the thing is, you got to get past everything you've seen him in that you're saying, he's really he was right for this.
I think
he's definitely right for this.
Yeah. I think what Lloyd said about him wanting to change his career path makes sense because before this, he was known for Cruel Intentions.
He was,
I know what you did last summer, 54. So he was obviously kind of like on this weird horror teeny bopper road. And he did, he pushed it and got this role. I don't think he necessarily ran with the opportunity, but I also think that the movie's kind of, I don't want to say failure, but it didn't set the world on fire. Didn't help him at all either.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you on that.
Right.
All right, Master. Who else we got?
Benicio Del Toro as Harold Longbaugh. We all know him. Usual Suspects, Traffic, Snatch,
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. And
God.
Is he in the Marvel movies too?
Yes.
All right. The collector.
He's a collector or something.
Yeah. Some shit.
We should mention real quick that these names, Parker and Longbaugh, are not actually these characters' names. It's said in the beginning of the movie, let me introduce myself, and you get the idea that they're giving fake names, and they're actually Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid's real last names.
Yeah, and there's other Butch Cassidy
references
later on. Then you have Juliette Lewis as Robin, the pregnant surrogate mother from Christmas Vacation, Cape Fear, Natural Born Killers. From Dusk Till Dawn, tons of movies.
A 90s icon, right? At this point, a 90s icon.
Oh, yeah. She's the 90s icon. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was very hot back then. She was in a band, too. What the heck was that called?
Oh, yeah. They sucked, too. She was bad. She was bad. There's a reason you don't remember.
Yeah, right. James Caan as Joe Sarno.
Mr. Jimmy Caan.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yep.
Godfather, Thief, Rollerball, Misery, Elf. I mean, come on.
He's great in Elf. Yeah.
This is James Caan. Taye Diggs as Jeffers. He's the bodyguard who's bald. So that's how you can recognize him. He's bald.
He's the bald guy.
Yeah. He's having an affair with a woman in the movie, which really leads to nothing. But
can I bring something up about that one scene real quick? Because it's not worth talking about later on as we talk. So you get the scene established that he's banging his boss's wife. Okay, that's all you need to know. But she's eating a tray of shrimp, like cocktail shrimp. And after she eats a cocktail shrimp, she keeps making out with him. How fucking gross.
That's gross.
Yeah.
I get it. She was hot. We'd all bang her. But like, there might be a moment where you say, hey, could we kiss after you fucking eat your cocktail shrimp? Or could you maybe brush your teeth? Because it's shrimp. I mean, even if it was something like less offensive, like chicken, I might not want to go into making out with her, but she's eating fucking sea bugs. And I don't know, that scene distracted me because I thought she must have like this incredibly powerful fucking pussy that this guy's willing to make out with her with with a crustacean in her fucking mouth.
She's the femme fatale.
Yeah.
John, do you not like shrimp?
I'm allergic.
Oh, you're allergic.
But I love shrimp. Before my allergy started about 10 years ago out of nowhere.
Me too.
But before that, I could eat shrimp. I could eat clam chowder. One night, me and my wife went out to dinner. I got fried shrimp plate. We got home. I was watching TV. I felt weird. Stomach hurt. Go to the bathroom, take a dump.
So I thought you were going to, let me just interrupt. I thought you were going to say we went out, I ate a ton of shrimp, then we started back.
No.
Wait, John, you just said no.
No. I'll eat the shrimp.
Your cadence.
Eat the shrimp, come home, watching TV. And I remember she was over on our old home computer over in the corner, playing around. I'm watching TV. Stomach hurts. Okay, go to the bathroom, do my thing. Get up to wash my hands, look in the mirror. My fucking face is like a quarter size bigger than it was before.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, holy shit, this is an allergic reaction to shrimp. And my wife is a calm person, but sometimes she can freak out. So as I'm walking in the back, I'm going, I need to tell you something before you see me. I think I'm having an allergic reaction to shrimp. I'm all hot all over now.
That's all she needed to hear.
Yeah. She gave me a couple Benadryl. It went away. But from that day forward, and I never went to the doctor for it.
Well, day forward, he never made out with anyone on shrimp.
That's right. Never touched shrimp again. All right.
So then you have Nicky Cat as Obex, bodyguard number 2. I fucking love Nicky Cat.
Yep.
He's great.
And why? I have no idea why,
I don't know why.
He just disappeared kind of too, right?
Nicky Cat.
Taye Diggs is very good in this movie too. I just want to throw that out there. Taye Diggs is great.
Very much a surprise because at that time he's still got your groove back, and I think
the male model.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't recognize the name of Nicky Cat, he's the douchebag in Dazed and Confused that wants to beat up Anthony Rapp.
No, Goldberg, the other guy.
Goldberg. I'm sorry. He's also in Sin City, Death Proof, Boston Public, really good TV show. Plus, he was a child actor in Chips, Herbie the Love Bug, V, The Facts of Life.
You know what the weirdest Nicky Cat credit is that I've always wondered why he's in it, because it doesn't seem like he's not an actor of great renown, but everybody, the name Nicky Cat, right? We all know Nicky Cat. Nicky Cat is the SWAT driver in the Dark Knight.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, because he's in Joel Schumacher's Batman. I think it was a little joke because he's friends with those guys.
Oh, okay. I never understood why he essentially has what is kind of a cameo, but almost like he's not really cameo level. A lot of people won't know who he is, but when you see it, you're like, oh, so is he going to become a bigger part of this movie? Nope. He's literally just the guy that drives the armored truck with the Joker.
He's in Planet Terror too, and he's in he's the the coke dealer or the coke buddy in Behind the Candelabra.
Okay, and in Planet Terror, he's the guy that
like a doctor, right?
No, he's comes out with the symptoms, and Josh Brolin sticks the needle in him and gets all the pus all over him. Yeah.
Yeah, Nicky Cat, love the guy.
And I worked on a movie with a dude, and he was best friends with Nicky Cat, and he literally was like, I'll call him right now and just tell him you're a big fan. And I was like, no, I felt weird, but he's like, no, dude, I will call. I'm going to call him tonight and just tell him that he thought and he said he thought that was kind of funny. You know what I mean? He's a normal guy, but
he must have a lot of stories like that. So now we have Geoffrey Lewis as Abner Mercer. Now, Geoffrey Lewis is Juliette Lewis's father. He's the Russian roulette guy in the movie.
Wow.
Doesn't have a huge role, but that's him. He was kind of shoved in there. Anyway,
Carlos.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little technical issue here.
Treasure to me. I love Judge Dredd.
I'm sorry. What were you gonna say? Judge Dredd fan?
Okay, and that's fine. That's fine. Like Geoffrey Lewis in this movie. Now, again, I understand you're a fan of this movie. I'm expecting you to give it a high grade at the end. That whole character. Can you, as a fan, admit that was absolutely pointless?
Oh, absolutely not.
No way.
I mean, it's a masterclass in acting. That's the character actor. I think a big part of this, if you're like a fan of those 70s cop movies, you know, I was just watching the other day, The Friends of Eddie Coyle with Robert Mitchum and all the different bit characters. You don't know who they are. You can't name them, but you recognize all these actors. They populate the entire movie. Geoffrey Lewis is great in this. And the way they sell, you get his whole character through a couple of glances. What'd you say, Lloyd? I'm sorry.
That has to be the best character introduction in a movie I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's out. You know exactly who he is for 40. Yeah. It takes 45 seconds, and you got his character down pat.
So
it's Geoffrey Lewis.
Is the point of his character to tell you what these other guys, if they live, would end up as? Like,
I think he's James Caan and but I don't think that's his point. But
you take his character out of the movie completely, regardless of how great he is, and it doesn't change the movie at all.
Not even a cent.
No, I think it definitely changes the enjoyment of the movie and how it speaks to you. I mean, his death scene, to me, that is the greatest death scene ever filmed, where he won't die, where he wakes up. I mean, that guy pulls that off. I love him in this movie. Well, I love him and James Caan together. I love the fact, there's so many throwaway lines in this movie. Just the way Geoffrey Lewis reacts to the shooting at one point, where he's like, he's surprised, but it's not like he's ready to kill. He's like, oh, shit, it started. And he just kind of backs up. Oh, shit, here we go. It's all going to go south. I loved it. I thought he pulled it off perfectly because he's an old man who's been through this so many times before. He doesn't even care. And the fact, I mean, the stunt casting, too, it's Juliette Lewis's father.
Yeah, it's cool. I agree.
What does Brian got? Brian, what do you have?
All I want to say is one of the complaints about this movie, but I think it's the beauty of the movie, is there is like no backstory and maybe some plot things that are unresolved. But the thing is, you don't need a backstory to these guys. That's the whole beauty of this movie. And I think each one of these characters is explaining something in the movie if you just listen. So like, you don't know who our two leads are at all.
Right, and character motivations are completely cloudy and all over the place.
Yeah, so it's like, this gives James Caan, by having Geoffrey Lewis in it, gives James Caan sort of a backstory.
Exactly. Yeah. The way they play off each other, you get a sense of who they are, but it's not written in the script. And I think if he wasn't there, or if they put somebody else in there, it's a total throwaway part, but I love him in it. I love the casting.
But you can look at it like, yeah, if he was taken out, sure. I mean, there's no argument there, but it would be a different movie.
I will say that I do agree. I don't agree that it's the greatest death scene ever filmed. But I actually, as I watched it and hadn't seen this in a long time, thought of myself saying to somebody, like, could you just go away? Could you, if it's not too much, could I do this alone? I did love that because that rang true. It's like your last couple minutes of life, you're going to die. And now you have this uncomfortable, awkward silence with a friend who, like, yes, he means well, but you know what? It's just my time. Do you mind going? And I like that a lot. I liked that whole bit quite a bit. All right, Manster, who's next?
All right. We have Dylan Cussman as Dr. Alan Painter. He's the doctor, now also the son of Mr. Chittick, who we'll see later, and the father of the baby. He's from Dead Poets Society, X2, Jack Reacher. He also co-wrote the screenplay for The Mummy with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I just read that. Yeah.
I'm not familiar. He's sort of familiar face, but I really don't know who this guy is. I don't know about you guys.
No.
Me neither.
I know
I've seen him in like everything you just mentioned, but yes, he does.
He's tight with McQuarrie. I know that they're longtime friends. What's interesting, and I don't mean to interrupt, but in the commentary, McQuarrie says that he considers Dr. Painter's the hero of the movie.
The hero, yeah.
Oh, he says every point I wanted to make with this movie comes out of that guy's mouth.
But the problem is that's not hard, because this is one of those movies, and we've talked about this in other episodes we've done. There's no good people in this movie for the most part. So there is no hero in this movie. The protagonists might be Felipe and Del Toro. They're fucking scumbags.
Yes.
So it's like you're rooting.
I would
for
never
them.
have picked. I wouldn't have picked the doc. I mean, the doctor's kind of a talk about throwaway. I mean, he's like the least interesting guy in here. This movie's so convoluted. My point was
also,
that like,
unexplored relationships with the doctor and the father. Like, shit, you had so much more there.
You didn't even know he was his father for the first half an hour of the movie.
Scott Wilson as Hale Chittick. He's the rich guy, with the trying to have the baby with his wife.
And you know what Scott Wilson was in very recently that we just did?
We just talked about it.
Judge
Go ahead,
Dredd.
Carlos.
Judge Dredd.
I love Judge Dredd.
Which I don't know if you know this or not.
I love Judge Dredd.
He is in that. A lot of other things, but a lot of people will know him mostly for being Herschel in The Walking Dead.
he was great in The Walking Dead. I mean,
Yes.
gotta give him some props for The Walking
But
Dead.
he also in Cold Blood, like he's world famous for that, and then
in Cold Blood, yeah.
Spent like he's like the TV actor of the week in like this movie and that. So yes, he has in Cold Blood,
right,
and Herschel. But this was this. He's awesome in this.
Fortunately, he passed away in 2018. Leukemia, I guess. Complications from that. Kristen Lehman as Francesca Chittick. That's the old guy's wife. Younger wife, I would say. And she is the one having the affair with Jeffers, the bodyguard.
Shrimp fucking.
Diggs.
Yeah, the shrimp fucker. She
kinky
was in
shrimp.
the TV show The Poltergeist, The Legacy. Judging Amy. Prison Break, a favorite of mine. The Killing. Altered Carbon. Guess that's a Netflix show I never saw.
Yeah,
and she co-founded the Nomcast. A lot of people don't know that. It was Kristen
Co-founded
Lehman.
the Nomcast.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Andrew Morgan and Kristen Lehman.
All right, 3 more. Mando Guerrero as Federale #1.
I think Lloyd's gone beyond like the listed credits at the end of the movie at this
I got
point.
2 more. All right, the next one you guys are going to like.
I know what he's going to say.
Henry Griffin's hair. All right.
Henry Griffin's hair.
Henry Griffin's hair. That's the star. He stars as P-Whipped.
Oh yeah, the redheaded guy.
He's the redheaded guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Has a great fucking line in this movie,
Yes.
but not as good as his girlfriend's line.
Yeah, but none of them are as good as Felipe's line. That's Felipe's line. Again, I've only seen this movie once, maybe many years ago. Felipe's line, I've never fucking gotten out of my head. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, we'll get to that after, right? So this guy, who you just recognize his fucking hair, he's a musician, a professor, a screenwriter, also a script doctor, and a filmmaker from New Orleans.
All right.
Yeah, he's in Treme.
Yeah,
he has a couple
Treme.
scenes
That's
in
what did I
Treme.
say? I said Treem, but yeah, Treme.
Yeah, it's a
And then the last one, Sarah Silverman as the raving bitch. She's got all kinds of slurs and racial, not racial, homophobic slurs that she yells at Felipe.
There is one more character, Lloyd, you haven't mentioned.
Who's that?
I believe he's listed in the credits as just a question mark.
I saw that. I did see that in yeah.
It's Man-Ass. There is a scene towards the end, right before the final shootout, where Juliette Lewis walks into a room and there's a man lying there, and it's just his ass. He's bare ass.
Oh yeah.
They gave him a credit. He's just the question mark.
Okay. All right.
And what I love about it, only 18 there's only 18 people listed in this movie. That's it. It's very self-contained, very low budget.
And somehow Lloyd mentioned 24 of them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that went on too long, but man, oh man, they're all in there.
The cast list sometimes goes on long because it's not just to talk about the cast, it's to bring things up as we talk about the cast.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's a conversation point. That's the reason we do it.
Yeah. And I hate just cutting someone out, just because maybe they're lesser known, but
No, it's fair.
you
It's
have
fair.
to do it sometimes.
We'll go to Carlos. Carlos, we like to do a thing before we start talking about the movie. How would you bumper sticker this movie? Very simple, 1 or 2 sentence description of what this movie is about.
Oh, Jesus. How do you do that? I listened to a podcast.
Oh, I got it.
But this
yeah,
particular
but I knew it.
this particular movie, I was listening to a podcast today. It was 23 minutes long. It was very funny, by the way. I don't remember the name of it. But the guy just tried to explain the plot of this movie, and eventually he gave up it. He just was he was getting confused as he was telling it. So this is a tough one to do, but
I'll try.
I'll just call it wrongly maligned Tarantino not ripoff or something like that. Because that's it just gets dismissed as a Tarantino ripoff.
I think Spears can do a better job. Spears, what do you got?
I just think it's Peck and Paw for 2000.
All right, Manster, what do you got?
All right, here's what I got. 2 transient criminals get more than they bargained for after kidnapping and ransoming a pregnant woman.
That's perfect. What you guys said wasn't bad, but that's the perfect little bumper.
Oh, you wanted us to explain the plot?
Yeah, I thought you were just talking about
No, a bumper. A bumper sticker. If you were to tell someone what this movie was about, just like I said.
Sorry, I don't know your fancy terms.
All right, yeah. I mean, you could have just said, "Hey, what's the plot?" in one word.
All right.
Boston translation.
Like, hey.
All right. I will say, you guys can make fun of me all you want. You're the first 2 that didn't get that when I said to do that. So okay, no problem. Anyways,
we're probably the most intelligent, people you've had on.
So we move into this film. Oh, Lord.
I'm going to start bringing sound drops.
Lloyd, stop doing that.
No, please don't.
Am I fired if I do that?
Because it's not a circus. You start getting circusy when you start getting too soundy.
I love this episode.
This will probably be a good one.
Let's do another bumper.
Bumper sticker.
What would your 2 sheet for this film be?
All right, Manster, take it away. I'm leaving it up to you.
I'm done. I don't. What's a 2 sheet?
I don't know, movie poster, right? I don't know. I just made that up on the spot. I don't know, man.
All right. You guys know I edit this one, right? So let's
How
not
many
make
inches
this.
would the clamshell be?
Let's not make this a 3-hour episode. All right. So we start off essentially at a club, a nightclub, right? And there's a long line, and 2 guys come out. They've obviously been inside drinking. It is our buddies Parker and Longbow. Now it actually starts right with them. Does it start with them laying on the ground? Is that how it starts?
It starts with them sitting on a car, setting up the car alarm.
You see them walk out of the bottom of a club.
Right.
It's a tracking shot, like a crane shot, and they walk through frame and then out of frame.
Right,
and
out of frame.
And then it goes to Sarah Silverman and the P-Whipped guy.
Right. So
and
car
Rolling
alarm.
Stones is blasting.
A great Rolling Stones song, which sets the tone for the whole movie.
So they sit down on this car. Car alarm goes off, and Sarah Silverman's character. And if you know Sarah Silverman, you know that she can be, boisterous. She has that quality about her.
Complete unknown
at the time.
Movie, complete unknown.
Yep, she had done SNL for like 1 year, gotten fired, and other than that, really not much of anything. She starts
historic year in SNL though. She was there as Dave Attell. Right, that was her writing partner. She witnessed Chris Farley taking a dump out of the side of the building. She's kind of like a Forrest Gump of comedy.
She's the Forrest Gump of SNL. Gump.
Lost her virginity to Kevin Brennan in Queens in Astoria, which is totally random. If you go Google Kevin Brennan, I'm sorry, Neil Brennan.
No, Neil Brennan.
No, Kevin Brennan. No, Kevin Brennan, the angry one. Sorry, go ahead.
They sit down in the car, set the alarm off. She starts to scream at them. She starts to scream a lot of homosexual epithets at them. She's going to have her boyfriend kick their ass. And Carlos, can you? This is the Ryan Philippe line that stuck with me for many years, because at first they just ignore her. Now this is your first sign that these guys aren't really good guys, because no matter how much of a bitch she is, they do sit on this guy's car. Like, who the fuck does that? These guys do that, because these guys, as they start to explain, there's a voiceover in this, are essentially just a couple of career criminals that are essentially transients, and they're always looking for the next big score, the next, not even big score. They literally talk about how they're going to eat every day. Like, every score for them is like getting through the day. She's yelling and screaming.
We are nihilists.
What does Ryan Philippe turn around, Carlos, and say at this point, which is one of the greatest lines?
I don't remember. See, what sticks with me with the opening is "Rip This Joint" by the Stones, that 70s era Stone. But he says something like,
if you don't shut
right, I'll screw fuck that cunt.
Yeah,
fuck start her head, something like that.
If you don't shut that fucking bitch up, I'm gonna come over there and fuck start her fucking head. And I've always just thought that was hilarious. It causes, she becomes very angry at them for that. They get out of line, her and her long-haired boyfriend go over, and
you're gonna let him talk to me like that? You're not gonna do nothing?
Yeah. So the boyfriend goes over, and he does say at one point, "Look, I know she's got a big mouth, but I'm still gonna fucking whoop you." The homosexual epithets continue. He's going to fuck these guys. He's gonna do all this stuff. Their way of getting out of this situation is the Philippe character, Parker, punches Sarah Silverman directly in the face. Now, I think Brian's about to say what I was about to say.
I think we're all gonna say it.
Yeah. Brian, what happened? Go ahead. In real life at this point?
Oh, I don't know what happened, but I love that he narrates it. That's all I was going to say. He narrates it to me, and I'm like, he gives the options. and then he punches Sarah Silverman. I think that's like the greatest thing in the world. And then Guillermo del Toro steps on a girl's foot.
Steps on a girl's foot.
He kisses her square in the lips. Yes. She spits at him, and then he steps on her foot. But I think what John was going for,
that she got punched.
He actually knocked her out cold.
Oh yeah. Oh, in real life?
In real life, he knocked her out cold. Yeah.
I think that's just a Sarah Silverman story, though. I think
it could be.
I
but
don't
that's
think
the story that I heard.
I don't know.
He says on the director's commentary that he used to go to a dog park because he's the type of guy that would go to a dog park, and then next to the dog park, these guys would play like ultimate frisbee all the time, and there'd always be conflict between the yuppies at the dog park and the jocks at the frisbee thing. And so they thought, like, as it got like more and more tense, him and his buddy were like, well, what are we going to do? These guys will kick our ass if it comes to that. And McQuarrie was like, well, why don't we we'll punch the women? We'll hit one of the women in the face. We know we're going to get our asses kicked, but we've won. No matter what, we've won.
Right.
So that's where like the inspiration for that comes from, which I thought was
Did they say something like the girls will blame it on the boyfriends for starting the fight?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what happens in the film.
Which is what she does. Yeah.
And supposedly in real life, he did knock her out. She or whoever said that when she woke up, he was almost in tears because he connected and he felt really bad. But in the movie, he punches her, blasts her nose out. There's blood everywhere. They get obliterated. The crowd kicks the fuck out of these two guys, which in a real life situation would really, two guys just hit two girls. It's going down. Right. Yeah. So this is our first like real test that these guys, even though they're our protagonists, are essentially pieces of shit, right? These are not really great guys. I want to ask you, Carlos, we've talked about this in other movies with some of the other movies we've done. And I think it's one of those things that in film can be either very, it could be liked or it could be disliked a lot. How did you feel about the fact that there is a narration in this film? Do you like the voiceover?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, it's, it fits in. The one thing about this movie, it's a crime movie, and I think everybody thinks of crime around this period. They think it all started with Tarantino, but there was actually these types of movies were coming out. I mean, Deep Cover, New Jack City was way before all that. And that's kind of in this class. So, I mean, there's a tradition in these type, even going back to like private investigator movies, a film noir, which this is a neo-noir. I'm okay with narration. I don't think it wasn't done because the plot made no sense. The plot still makes no sense with narration. So yeah, I'm totally cool with it. I think it sets a tone. I think everything in that first scene, from the shot to the music to them assaulting Sarah Silverman and then getting the shit kicked out of him by all those guys with the 90s era like weirdo hair. Yeah. It all sets the tone. I'm totally cool with the narration.
All right, I did want to ask too. About both of you guys about your feelings on the soundtrack to this film. It was scored by a guy named Joe Kramer, who apparently has worked with McQuarrie multiple more times. He did Jack Reacher. He did Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. I don't think he did anything after that, so I don't know if maybe whatever happened. Do you guys like the actual score, Brian? Do you like the score? Because me personally, when I hear especially certain motifs, there's huge Western motifs in the score of this. What did you think about that, Bri?
Yeah, I love this soundtrack. I mean, again, I'm not a soundtrack guy, so I'm probably the wrong guy to, but I think the music in this is a big part. And I just love that drum. It sets up the tension. It's, yes, it works for this movie.
It's almost comical. I mean, the music reminded me of the beginning. I think it's, Holy Grail, Monty Python on the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Where it's dum dum dum, and then there's like, it almost seems comical, but it works for me. I think the music's great in this, and all the maracas.
It's a Western beat, it's perfect.
I think it's perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I read somewhere, and I don't know what the source was, but that music you're talking about was pulled directly from another score.
Oh wow!
Oh no, kidding! I know, like the whole first scene he says and it's all over the internet. The intro to these characters, his whole purpose. I mean, the whole movie he says is his experience trying to get a movie made. He says that's where the whole movie is birthed from. It's his frustration at not being able to get anything made after The Usual Suspects. And this was supposed to be a trailer. You're going to see them do all the worst things, the antithesis of what heroes do in movies. There was going to be a whole 5-minute opening sequence that was a movie trailer that introduced the character, which that's very 90s and a little Tarantino-esque. But instead, he just he boiled it down to them punching the girl.
Right.
So
one of my favorite insults that Sarah Silverman hurls when she's hurling all of her insults is, I'm going to paraphrase it, but I think she says, you and your gay ass fucking uncle, because it's just funny that like these two guys of these age ranges are like partners because they don't fit up. Del Toro is probably 40 at this point, and Felipe is probably 26 or 27. I like the fact that she says that to him.
Just the fact that they bring out they make fun of Del Toro's age right at the start. I love that.
Right, your gay uncle, yeah.
Yeah. And not just that, but I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but did they color his hair gray in this? Because either he is naturally gray and he's usually like colored, or they made to look him older, because he does look older in this.
I think that's 90s. That hasn't aged well. His hairdo in this movie, I think.
Right.
But I do think it's natural. I think that's natural. I think he's he'd probably be white, but he probably colors it for movies.
Yeah.
But it is that 90s hairdo. You know what I mean? Like that, the mushroom,
and the front,
like
and
mushroom
then it
toppy.
comes over. Yeah.
Going for it right now.
But it's Benicio. It's Benicio, so it works.
Dude, that
the
guy.
One actor we didn't even expand on was just because I thought you have to say it's Benicio.
That's one thing. Going back and watching this week for the first time in a long time, and doing it sober. He should have gotten an Academy Award for this. I mean, the guy conveys so much just through looks.
He's better in this than Traffic.
And the whole thing, I guess the whole thing that he kept saying to Macquarie was cut out my dialogue, which he also did. The Usual Suspects, he's like, my character's so useless, whatever I say, it's not going to be intelligible. And, he steals the movie and launches his career. And I guess he's doing the same thing here. There's so many just looks. That guy's awesome. I got a crush on him.
Carlos Man Crush Danger. All right, so we move on to these guys now are showing us how they live their lives, and they start talking about how if you give blood, which I didn't know this, I didn't know that blood is only worth a couple $100, but a shot of cum is $3,000.
$3,000.
Like if
I used to do this in college,
I'd be there every week.
I made $100. Well, I didn't do sperm. I did blood. I made $100 a week. Where I would have done it, it just would have been one visit. I had to go twice to make $100 for blood.
But it seems again, it's a movie, so I'm fine with it. But doesn't that seem like a very, I don't know, like the difference? $100 for blood, $3,000 for cum. If I knew cum was worth $3,000 20 years ago, my socks would have been a lot cleaner, and I would have.
Well, that's wrong, because it was only when I went to school. It was only $100. It was $100 for sperm, and it was $100. You had to go twice to do the blood. The first time was 60. No, the first time was 40, and the second time was 60 if you went the second time in a week.
All right. So they go to this they show them go to this facility where they're going to donate sperm and make some money. Now, Lloyd, I'm going to ask you, looking through the lens of the year 2021, and I get it, things are different now. So does that scene and the dialogue where more so the Felipe character, but both of them are antagonizing the guy.
They're both antagonizing the questionnaire.
And again, there's a lot of gay,
turning all the questions around on them. Right.
There's a lot of gay focused epithets and humor. Does that make it into the movie now? Or do you think that scene runs cringeworthy now? Or are you okay with it for the type of movie it is?
All right. Here's where we might get a little sticky. I'm okay with it. But that's just me. I grew up in a time where that was almost normal talk. All right. I'm not saying that's good. I don't condone it. I don't say it. But that was almost normal. And for the movie and for what Ryan Philippe's character is trying to just push back on this guy, I think it's fitting. I don't think it would fly in 2021. I don't think you would make that.
I'm not saying one way or another I think it's right or wrong. I think the scene's fine because, again, it solidifies who we're dealing with. These guys are not good people. They're literally just pushing this guy for no fucking reason whatsoever.
Right.
Although, if I may, if you look at the scene, right, it does the parallel dialogue between Del Toro and Felipe. You don't need them both. Benicio's lines are better. I think if they cut out Felipe saying all the homophobic stuff, you still got a very funny. It accomplishes the same thing. They probably could have. His lines are great.
They're much better. Yeah.
I could play a clip of just Benicio, because you can find it on YouTube. They cut out, which I love it. Like YouTube now cuts out whoever did the video. They just do Benicio stuff, and he's great. It's funny, and there's no way. I think if Macquarie could, There's no way he would write those lines today. There's no way he would do that.
No way.
Play your clip, Carlos.
Oh wait, that's not it. Sperm bank.
What you say qualifies you as a donor? I've never killed a man. I beg your pardon? I said I've never killed a man. I didn't ask if you had. You asked why I thought I was qualified. I think of that as qualification. And I'm just wondering why that in particular strikes you as an important qualification for semen donation. I would say that's a big fucking qualification. Excuse me, a very important qualification. No one's ever said that before. You ever asked? No. You should. Nobody brings up sex with dead people. Of course I don't. It's sick. You brought it up. To say I never did it. I didn't ask that. You should.
Come on.
You should. I love
so
that.
That cuts out.
Those are great lines.
Yeah, they cut out Felipe's stuff, and there it is.
That's Carlos's way of denigrating us that we don't have the wonderful little podcast machine he has.
It's that I was so excited to come here. I spent time doing this. I was so psyched for this episode. I was like, I'm gonna bring clips.
I could see how much he loves this. And
I'm just kidding. I'm fucking around with you. with you.
Okay. His lines were great, especially because they followed the Ryan Philippe line, and so one led to another, but not really, but it seemed like it did.
Right.
That was fantastic.
Right. So what happens here, Brian, while they're at the sperm facility that kind of kicks off what's going to happen?
They overhear. You're so lucky because I didn't. I haven't seen this movie in so long. Like that's the scene I got up to. No, they overhear that a woman. There's a woman about they could steal a woman's baby.
In great detail, they overhear.
Yeah, that fucking guy talked way too loud and way too much.
Guys, we're missing a huge thing in the movie, though. All right, so they're in the sperm bank. They overhear, the medical people saying like, "Hey, this Chris lady's coming in. She's got $1 million. They're giving her $1 million to have a baby." They're reading nudie mags. Yeah. One of the nudie mags, Jackie Martling. Jackie Martling's on the cover. Has the name from Stern.
Oh,
Baba
really?
Booey, not Baba Booey. The Jackie the Joke Man. Something about Jackie the Joke Man. I was like, I took a picture of it.
I couldn't read that. I didn't see that clear.
Yeah. Jackie the Joke Man.
I saw that, and I wondered if it would come up on here because I know you guys are huge Stern fans. Yeah. So
I have a clip. I'm just kidding.
Oh Lord!
I know there was no clip for that.
It was going to be Jackie's music. So they overhear this, and this is where opportunity knocks. That this woman is giving. Essentially, here's what's happening. This woman is going to be a surrogate mother for the Scott Wilson Chittick character and his shrimp fucker wife, who can't have a baby apparently. She's being paid $1 million to do it, and she is followed to every one or escorted to every one of her appointments by the Taye Diggs and Nicky Cat character. The Taye Diggs and Nicky Cat character are kind of the not opposite ends, but they're kind of the foils against a Parker and Longbow.
They came from like a Michael Mann. They were like extras on a Michael Mann movie. They were extras in Heat, and they walked
but you know
over
what
into
I
this.
look at it? The only difference is they work for a rich guy. They're the same guys.
They're essentially criminals as well. They're essentially guys that are willing to do, a wrong thing, which to just kind of go and show
corporate.
They're corporate. They're corporate. They kind of go and show that in the scene where we jump ahead a little bit, where Parker and Longbow do take the Juliette Lewis character. We don't see it, but there's a huge firefight outside between those four guys and two more guys. And when it's all clear and done, we see like innocent bystanders on the ground dead. Right. And we're to assume that it wasn't just like from Parker and Longbow. These other guys, were involved as well. Obviously, probably
completely
killing
amoral. Yeah.
Totally amoral. They're having.
John, let me.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What about I love this because that part where they first encounter Ryan or Benicio pops out as they're in that long hallway trying to go to the parking lot. Felipe comes up with the thing over his head, and Del Toro jumps out and takes her hostage. And then there's
Del
the old
Toro
Mexican
wearing an N95 mask.
Yes, I did notice that. Yeah,
there's that great standoff, and then it just becomes like a technical thing, moving. Which I also have a clip on literally, but I love that. I remember seeing that in the theater, and I had never seen that before. Yes. Where it's like they're trained guys do, and it's not just it's not Michael Bay, it's not a Vin Diesel movie, it's not a Marvel movie. It's sort of realistic action, and the way you would think these career criminals and these other guys who are just as sketchy but wearing nice suits, just the physical way they make their way out of there. I loved it. I thought that's when this movie was just like, I was like, this is different. This is a different movie to me.
That's the first time, just real quick, that's the first time in this movie that you get an idea. Because when you meet them in the beginning and they're talking about how we live to eat day by day, you just figure they might be like guys that knock over stores and
just
stuff.
Petty criminals.
This is the first time you realize that these guys are operators of some sort.
Right.
And they're one step above, a regular like little like stick up guy. Brian, what's up?
They were also trained by Christopher McQuarrie's brother, who either was a Navy SEAL.
Navy
but
SEAL.
He did all that techniques. Also, it's one of the few movies like noted where they do not put their finger on the trigger. It's proper gun handling where the only time you see them put their fingers on the trigger is when it's really meant. Other times, the way they handle their weapons, I guess, is like straight up the right way to do everything.
To me, it's a callback to the end of Thief, where James Caan goes through each room and he never crosses his legs. He makes sure to do the proper way to walk when you're handling a handgun so you don't trip. And it's just those little weird details in that movie and this movie that I love.
And again, to me, it's part of the backstory because the way all these groups move together, that all these characters have been partners or working amongst each other.
Like John was saying,
these are time.
They're career criminals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Master, what did you have?
Yeah, no, I was going to say some of the same things, but I have a little different take because this is the first time I saw this movie. All right. So this movie's telling me in the beginning, hey, we're just petty criminals. We do what we can. We lay low, whatever we can to sustain ourselves. That's all we do. And now I'm seeing this scene where they're extremely coordinated to an extent that I've never seen before. Every single movement that they made was a coordinated move. And I'm like, the movie lied to me. They told me these guys were petty criminals. They're way more than just that. So I was a little distrusting of them at that point because I'm like, well, what else am I not being told that I'm going to find out later? And you do find out a hell of a lot later, especially much later when they're, I think, at the hotel or the motel. Ryan Philippe starts telling Benicio del Toro some things that he doesn't even know. I'm like, they're just like pulling things out and telling me because it's convenient. That's how I felt at the time watching this.
One thing, I get what you're saying, but I guess if you look at that to defend it a little bit, even though I mean, that's, if you don't like this movie, I can kind of see, I can totally understand it. It's one of those unique movies where it's like, I get it. If somebody doesn't like it because the plot is too bizarre or there's too many connections, I totally get it. But they hastily decide to kidnap this woman, and they give up. Like, she's going to be gone. They screw it up. And just by chance, they end up kidnapping her. Like, yeah, it's like they're good with weapons. I mean, hey, I guess maybe the backstory is maybe they were Navy SEALs. Maybe they're just really good with weapons. I don't know. But yeah, no, that's a good point. You can't really argue it.
Just to build on what Brian, all three of you guys said a little bit about like their movement, and Brian with the trigger thing. I was reading about this, and it's considered amongst like movie fans that are gun experts to be extremely accurate, not just down to like the trigger part or their movements, but I guess at the end, like after after the reloading, the shots and the shot placement, the way that like how at the end of the movie when they're in the hotel, how they each start off with like a rifle. When the rifles run out, they apparently sling the rifles over the correct shoulder that you would to pull a handgun, which a lot of movies don't do correctly. There's only one shot in the whole movie where they just unload, and McQuarrie left that in on purpose to make it like a fun action moment. There's one scene, I think, where they're both unloading on what I called the members only mafia at the end.
Yes.
I call it the whack-a-mole guys.
Yeah. The crew of 65-year-old guys that they have to fight off at the end.
I love it.
Which is amazing. But there's one shot where they each unload like two rounds worth, 2 clips worth without reloading. But like Brian was motioning, the reloading, all the gunplay in this movie apparently is considered top notch.
And just as like somebody who watches a lot of movies and always loved the crime movies, and specifically like those 70s ones that would be on Channel 5, Mr. Majestic, anything with Charles Bronson, right? It also works like as just, as a little kid when you played with G.I. Joe toys and you would make them just kill each other in mass and just, that would be your whole thing. It would be G.I. Joe guys shooting at each other. It works from just like, you don't have to know that how to handle a gun. I've barely picked up a gun. I've never fired a gun my whole life, but it's just cool. It works on film. This scene, it's a unique, it works as an action piece. Well, and I wish more movies would do stuff like this instead of just completely computer generated, as loud as can be, pew, 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 like laser shooting. I just love how just contained and how exciting this is when it doesn't. I don't even know why it's exciting, but it works.
Well, and it's real, and it does look real. Like, that's the one thing I could say is it looks. And
the gunfire is so real. Loud. It's so loud in this movie. It's almost scary, which I guess it should be. I've never had anybody fire a gun at me, but I assume it would be loud and scary.
That's what I like about the scene where she gets off the elevator. Like Brian said, she wants out. She's done with this. She gets off the elevator. The gunfight's happening outside, but you hear the fucking gunfight. Like she's inside, doors shut, and you just hear crack, crack, crack. Again, I don't claim to have ever been around a lot of that. I have heard gunshots. They're fucking loud, and it is a frightening thing. So, but what I wanted to bring up as part 2 of this little discussion is something that I read, because when I'm watching it, I thought, this is so bizarre. But apparently Benicio del Toro saw this on an episode of Cops.
Oh, yeah.
And went to
the best scene in the movie?
The car chase.
The car chase. So
the slow motion car chase.
Lloyd, how would you describe this car chase to someone who has not seen this movie listening to this podcast?
Fucking bizarre. So when I watched this, that was my note. My note was, what is going on with this car chase and why are they doing it?
Lindsay's not watching it with me. She said the same thing. She goes, what the fuck are they doing? And I said, it makes sense if you pay attention.
So
with that music though, too?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so 70s.
So they're at a point where they're further away from the cops so that they can afford to get out. Not the cops, but the
Tay
bodyguards.
Diggs and Nicky Cat.
Tay Diggs and Nick. Yeah. So they're ahead, and they, unbeknownst to you, they've gotten out of the car and they just let the doors open, and they're hiding on this.
See that? Oh, it's so awesome!
And then they're hiding, and then all of a sudden, Nicky Cat and Tay Diggs come up, and they stop, and they see the car, and so now they get out, and they slowly walk up to see like what the hell's going on. This isn't how you do a car chase. And then the guys come out, and they shoot at them, and they run back. They run in the car, and they keep going. And it's just so bizarre because I've never seen this in a car chase before.
They make the guys, they have to run back to their car as
they're just looking to get a drop on them. Yeah,
absolutely. Right. But did they actually gain anything from this?
Yes.
Well, yeah, they ended up I think they're this is we're getting really
T-bone them.
Yeah, they lure him into the point where they can take their Suburban, back it up, and disable their vehicle. It was very fun
and interesting, and I think it was great for the movie. I just was like, "What the fuck is that?"
It was very interesting because the idea is that at one point they're both in neutral and they're Flintstoning the cars down the alley.
Right. Yeah.
Like they're using their legs like oars, essentially.
I was worried
at the same time.
I was worried, because I remember seeing that in the theater, and it was another thing that kind of struck me. It tickled me. I was like, I've never seen this. This is so cool. I was worried about watching it all these years later. And yeah, when they put their feet down, you're kind of like, yeah, you're just pushing it a little too much there, Macquarie. But overall, I love the fact that they're just trying to get a little bit ahead so they can take off. Like it was just the opposite of a car chase. To me, that scene, and there's a couple more in here, make up for the shortcomings, like the admitted shortcomings of the plot and some of the dialogue where it's overwritten. These things just, it just evens it out to me.
So let's land here at this point, because I want to get back to that with you, Carlos. They now have the girl, and we go to an extended period of the movie where it's essentially them guarding the girl. We kind of also realize that, I felt this way at least, that even though Del Toro and Philippe are the protagonists and they're the lead actors, that the movie's not only following them. We're going back to Scott Wilson. We're going to James Caan comes out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
He comes out of nowhere. He has a great scene because Nicky Cat and Tay Diggs get arrested. James Caan shows up to bail him out, and he has this long conversation with them. He's a bagman. He's a handler. He's a cleaner. He's the guy that's going to make all of Chittick's problems go away. And he has to now figure out how to get these guys out. what the next move is, all that. So that being said, we know right now where we can put a pin in it to get back to the movie. But I do want to know, Carlos, because you did say it, what do you think, being a fan of this movie, are some of the shortcomings of this movie?
The dialogue, some of the dialogue is too forced. Like some of Jimmy Cahn's line deliveries, they're just a little, they're overwritten. And I think
it's
even
got
that
some great quotes. But totally unnecessary.
But it seems like it's like
quotes.
written for quotes.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
I guess here's the thing about this movie. Like Joe, the guy who started this podcast with us, was a screenwriter. I mean, after we launched this thing, he sold a spec script, which is like, that's 1 in a million to do. But he always hated any movie where the characters talk like they're in movies. And this movie has some of that. And I think a lot of screenwriters don't like that. They don't like when the dialogue is so quirky that it sounds like the characters are talking like they would like they're in their own cool movie. So, and then this movie has got a ton of criticism because, Tarantino is generally recognized as the guy who put that on the map and perfected it, and nobody else should even come close to even trying that. And this does have some lines that just don't work. So, and the fact that the plot, I mean, if you try to read the plot, like I said, James Caan, his daughter is actually Juliette Lewis, the pregnant one, and she got pregnant by the doctor, but the doctor's father is the guy from The Walking Dead. I mean, they just force in so many connections.
Yeah, the James Caan being the father of Juliette Lewis, I don't know what that has to do with anything in this. Now, there is a line earlier in the movie where he's talking to, when him and Del Toro have their little meetup, where he says, I have a daughter, and they're talking about like getting out of the life. And James Caan says, she says she's working on something for me. Then you realize that it's taking the money.
And what I love.
Yeah.
And also what I never, upon this, recent viewing, Del Toro's like, well, how's that working out for? And Caan's like, not so good. And I think it implies that Juliette Lewis is as screwy and as amoral and doing whatever she needs to do to make a buck as everybody else in this movie. Like they're all just twisted. That never really dawned on me.
Oh, she literally gives up her life and her womb to make money. I mean,
and like let's say the other guy screw her to do whatever she has to do to make the actual doctor. But how great is, I think Juliette Lewis is another one. Like she is incredible in this movie. I mean, she is so damn pregnant. I mean, I felt like I think that's the closest I'll ever know. Like that seemed like, oh, that's what being pregnant is like.
She a pregnant lady in pain.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, it was like that last, when the woman's like you're in the birthing center with her, and they're just, all right, just go walk around for a while. That kid will come in any second. And as a husband, you're like, what did I get myself into? And there's a lot of that in this movie too. There's a lot of like, pregnancy's kind of creepy, but anyway, I'm sorry. I'm going off on a weird tangent.
We're all about tangents here at Pint Comics. Yeah. I like her. I don't know why I like her line. Was it, are you going to eat the other half of that sandwich?
Which apparently improvised.
I was gonna. Instead of just giving it to her. Yeah, I was gonna.
I love the relationship between those two, because apparently that wasn't really in the script. And again, like McQuarrie in the commentary, which I recommend if you could find it, listen to it. He's like, well, yeah, I had 10 pages of dialogue here, and then Benicio del Toro just told me to cut it down to a look. Because Benicio del Toro had a lot of creative control over this movie. I guess it was kind of like, and not that he was being an actor egomaniac. Apparently McQuarrie just really liked working with him, because McQuarrie in the commentary is like, I don't know what I was doing here. I messed up coverage of that shot. Well, there was more there, but I had to cut it out because I put the camera in the wrong place. There's a lot of that.
Let me ask you a question. So at this point, they have her. These guys, they're making it very clear that they're going to, if they don't get their money, they're going to kill her, kill the baby, do whatever they got to do to get this money. They want the money. They want the ransom. As the movie goes along, she starts playing cards with Ryan Philippe. There's never a moment where they become best friends, but there starts to be a little bit of, maybe a comfort level that's getting there. Del Toro hears them through the door, after he has his little moment with Jimmy Caan. Do you guys find, I'll ask Spears first. Brian, do you find that it's hard to track these guys' intentions, and it's hard to track, I guess at the end, they kind of have a change of heart? Do you totally buy that?
I mean, I think that's probably the most movie thing of this. And, as as the audience, I want them to have a change of heart, because as ruthless as they are, I am starting to like them, or they're just cooler or nicer than their counterparts that they're fighting. I mean, I guess I'm not going to say I had this ending figured out, but I knew it would be. It's the only end that could happen for this movie. So I don't know. I mean, I always rooted for them and wanted them to do the right thing, but that's not, then we wouldn't get the movie that we have.
Because there almost is, like, Manster, do you agree? There's almost, like, again, we know none of the people are good in this movie, but it's like everybody's playing against each other, even Juliette Lewis. There's no one, like, teaming up here at all, right? Do you feel the same way? I don't know. So did you feel at the end when because I mean, we'll skip a little bit ahead to the end just for this bit, but they're giving her this fucking this Mexican motel C-section, and that sounds like a cool band name, but it's not, right? It's this awful scene where there's like no she gets an epidural, that's it. They're cutting her up. You get to see little bits of it. It's really gross. And then finally, Del Toro's character says she's had enough.
Yeah, he's the one that said she's had enough.
She's had enough. But like, do you I never believed in this movie they were going to really kill her.
Yeah, no, that's never really on the table.
But I also never believed that they would stop that short of getting their money. Did you believe that, Manster?
Yeah. Like Brian said, I mean, there's really only one way that this movie was going to end, and it was just leading up to that. They're not going to kill the girl. They're not going to get the money, and that's it. And I think what Brian was saying before, I mean, you're kind of rooting for them. The only reason you're rooting for these guys is because they have more personality than anyone else in the movie.
Right.
And that's it. And it's good personality. It's great to watch them.
All right. Now, I said we'd get back to this, and I'm a good host. So, Carlos, we talked about James Caan. We talked about who his character is. What is your theory?
Well, my theory is that the James Caan character, Joe Sarno, it's Frank from Thief. At the end of Thief, James Caan, breaks into the house of the guy who owes him money. And he doesn't go there to get the money. He goes there to get his revenge because the guy's ruined his life. The mobster had killed his best friend, James Belushi. So Caan, a man of a code, blows up his own business, tells his wife and kid, "We're done. I'll never see you again." And he goes to kill the guy. And he doesn't walk out with the money. He just kills the guy. But at the very end, he gets shot by Dennis Farina he's wearing a bulletproof vest, but he gets shot right about in his collarbone neck area. And then you walk in, you see Joe Sarno in Way of the Gun. He's got a very prominent scar right there. Some of the things he says is directly, it's a direct lineage to Frank in Thief. So my theory is that this guy, after he walks out at the end of Thief, one of the greatest endings of all time, this is where he ended up. One other thing though, guys, I just want to throw out there, and I never caught this on until I just viewed it. Benicio del Toro puts Ryan Philippe twice in a position where he's going to get killed because he thinks Ryan's soft. He thinks, he knows that he's developing a friendship and he's not quite hard enough to be a career criminal. Their code is, if I have to kill a pregnant woman, I have to kill a pregnant woman. That's sort of what Felipe's talking about. But it sort of weighs on him because he has a discussion with Frank from Thief or James Caan that, how much the job sucks and it's just, you don't get anywhere and blah, blah, blah. But okay, so the doctor shows up with the medical bag. They call the doctor because she's having issues with the with the pregnancy. And Del Toro knows there's a gun. He knows that the doctor brought a gun, but he lets the doctor bring the bag in there, and he's just looking at Ryan Philippe to see, like, you're either going to get shot right now or you're going to realize there's a gun in that bag. Mm-hmm. And Philippe looks in, takes the gun out, hits him over the head. Then where Benicio's they leave Juliette Lewis alone, and Ryan Philippe is like, look, let's get out of here. I can't do this, really. This enough's enough. Too much shit has gone bad. Del Toro's like, I left my jacket. And Felipe's like, I'll go get it. I'll go get it in the room. And, all right. And he wants to say goodbye to Juliette Lewis. And then he looks, and then at the last second, he grabs Juliette Lewis, boom, blows the door off the shotgun. So that was him putting Ryan Philippe in a position where he was going to get himself killed.
Right. And you also see Philippe sees the jacket hanging off the rearview mirror of the car.
Right. And then he's realizing, you just tested me. But I just thought that was, and I never got any of that. That always confused the hell out of me. This movie just sort of rolled over me for years. But I just think that's really effective. He could have got his partner killed twice, and he's just trying to teach him a lesson. So, and that's why I think it has more emotional impact at the end, where Benicio del Toro is finally at the point where he's so beaten down. He knows they lost. He knows whatever's going to happen, James Caan's going to kill him. He knows like this is his fate. He's like, well, you know what? She's had enough. Let's just get out of here. And it's kind of like the end of the Wild Bunch, where the gang says, let's do that final walk and we're going to die. We're going to die, but that's it. We're going to die on our own terms. We're sick of running. We've encountered something that's greater than us. This is the end.
Can I just say this? Because I'll forget. I think this is the Wild Bunch and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. Like, I bet you that he loved those two movies because I see those. Like, again, I don't know if you've seen my Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. It's would never get made today. It's a very non-PC movie. I highly recommend it, but it's not going to be in everyone's taste. Where it's all about despicable people.
It's one long trigger warning.
Yeah, and this movie, and then the Wild Bunch, I think it builds and builds, and just it is that guys know this is our last battle. We're going in. This is it. This is our suicide mission.
I've never seen Alfredo Garcia, but I love the Wild Bunch. The Wild Bunch is incredible. Master, what did you have?
No, I was just going to go back to Benicio del Toro is the one in the end, basically says, let's just walk away. Who was it that said, let's just walk away in the beginning when they were coming out of the hospital?
It was Benicio.
Was it him then too?
Yep. He walks away first.
I don't know. What do you mean in the hospital?
Like
when they went to kidnap the girl,
when everything went wrong.
Yeah.
I think at that point, I think at the end of this movie, he wants to walk away because he knows that she's been through a lot. That part, he was cutting his losses. Like this isn't going to happen. Let's roll to the next town. Let's roll to the next score. Obviously, the way this thing ends, there probably isn't going to be a next score for these guys. Now, we do learn a couple things as we go along in this film that whether they're super important or not, I don't know. The Taye Diggs character is banging Chittick's wife. That's important simply for the fact that the last line of the movie kind of is a little bit of I guess almost like a comeuppance or like, oh shit. And we'll get into that. Nicky Katt and Taye Diggs characters at one point start to plot against, their bosses, and they're going to take the money. And I did like the fact that in that scene and another scene where they're talking, she's in the background listening.
Right. She's eavesdropping two
times. And these guys are like pros, you know what I mean? They're not the Parker and Longbaugh. They're the paid pros, yet they're sitting in a kitchen of this guy's fucking house, which I would assume this is the kind of house that probably has security cameras.
Yeah, it's not where you should be having this conversation.
And they're having a conversation.
What works about that, it's just, I think that shot is somebody, the cinematographer just set up that shot because it just looks good. It's totally substance, totally style over substance because it's her, it's a cool looking shot.
Yeah, them sitting in the kitchen talking, and then she's on the stairs going upstairs, all inside one shot.
A minute.
Yeah.
But then, I'll just throw out there, when Jimmy Caan meets Benicio del Toro for the first time, he has a throwaway line. I think Benicio del Toro fires a warning shot, like a really loud warning shot, and then
the amount of bullets. Something about the amount of bullets.
He goes, one's a backfire, three's gunplay.
Yeah.
Which is, that's true. That's absolutely true. You'll hear that on police scanners. Just little lines like that, just do it for me. And then it balances some of the stuff that's kind of like the head scratchy character motivation, and everybody's out to screw somebody. Everyone has ulterior motives in this movie, probably more so than is needed. But I love that. One's a backfire, three's gunplay. And he just says it. He whispers it.
That's a great scene too when they sit down together. That is.
Yeah, in the coffee shop, or
that is
getting a coffee.
That's acting right there, man. Or just they don't make those two guys anymore, sitting down like that. That's not, listen, also that's a better scene than was in Heat between De Niro and
just thinking of that.
Pacino.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Maybe not better, but just as good. It's right up there. That's two freaking legends,
I'm not going to jump in on that one, but I will say that I like any movie. One of the reasons I love the show Justified so much was the dynamic between Raylan Givens and Walton Goggins' character,
yes.
Boyd Crowder, because these guys, they're diametrically opposed by viewpoint, by what they are tagged as in life, yet they have a history, and they can come together and still talk and have these moments. And the brotherhood of criminality is what allows James Caan to say, hey, let me buy you a cup of coffee. I mean, that's literally, I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
It's a code.
That's the fucking title of the movie. The Way of the Gun is the code that these guys live under, right? This is essentially what that's how I feel, is these guys are modern day robbers, modern day train robbers, modern day outlaws. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I felt about this movie. I think, and I will say, I do think the Geoffrey Lewis character doesn't really have anything to do in this movie other than to be a point of reference as to where you end up with this kind of lifestyle. You know,
they are born losers. So
they're born losers. Brian said it. His scene is great. He's sitting there in his house by himself, just peacefully trying to kill himself.
Playing Russian roulette with a bag of guns.
Listen.
Bag of guns.
He wants to die by himself in the beginning. He just wants to die by himself in the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it. He looks at it, he's like, oh, I'm going to make a mess on the wall. And he puts his hand on it. It's so dark but so funny.
But what I liked about that was the fact that goes to show the attitude of these guys, I think, is that he's sitting down, he's going to commit his final act, he's killing himself, but the phone's ringing. And we get a feeling that there's really not anybody in this guy's life, but maybe he thinks the phone ringing is an opportunity to do something. And it is. You know,
or just how all random it is, how it's all just to roll a flip of the coin.
Again, I will say, I don't think that his character amounts to much in this, but the acting wise, like you guys said, he's a legend. Plus, like, just the looks in his face where he's trying to kill himself, but the phone's ringing and he's just giving it this look like, oh, God damn it. You know what I mean? I got to get that phone.
That tells a story. That's like, all right, his character didn't matter, but he had a beginning, middle, and an end, and you saw it all. Like,
yeah.
I know his backstory. I don't know like his backstory, but you know his character.
Yeah, there's a whole, in the guy from The Walking Dead and the doctor, whatever his name is, they allude to something that happened in Baltimore, which they never explain, which you never know. Just something happened in Baltimore. I also love, I got to throw in there, because this is like sort of personal, Benicio del Toro's reaction to like any pregnancy stuff. When he sees the sonogram and he puts one hand over his eye and tilts his head.
Yeah.
I mean, that is great filmmaking. When Juliette Lewis is trying to, she doesn't want to get killed, and she's sort of a hustler herself. So she takes Ryan Philippe's hand as like, feel my moving baby.
That's creepy.
And that's dude, when my wife was pregnant, I would do that all the time. I'd put my hand on and I would just go, that's creepy.
Listen,
that's creepy. I got to play it, John. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That's creepy.
Yes. That's creepy. Guy, he was the perfect Wolfman. It's
you know what's absolutely crazy is, why don't you? I listen to your show all the time. You have this board. Why don't you play sound drops in your show more?
Because John, I actually prepared for this. We don't prepare for our show.
That's the difference, John.
You hit the nail on the head when you were on our show, and you were like, oh, this guy, his idea of preparation is calling 9:45 and saying, are you available at 10 p.m. That's the absolute truth. We do no prep. For this one, I was like, I'm going to bring it. I listened to this. I know you like Judge Dredd. You guys had whatever that last one at this recording was like. What was it? The Day the Earth Stood Still? What was the last one you guys?
Yeah, we did that.
Judge Dredd, but yeah, The Day the Earth Stood Still was a couple.
Yeah, so like I prepared for this. I respect. I
appreciate the hell out of it. So let's get into what is probably, I guess, the pièce de résistance of this movie, right? The final scenes that take place in this Mexican hotel. Through different plot machinations, Chittick character gets Juliette Lewis back, but then they end up getting her back, right? It's like a handoff real quick.
Right, yeah. Somehow the bad guys get her. Right,
Taye Diggs survives and is able to get her to this Mexican hotel. Nicky Cat gets shot, and then we get this quick scene where they're torturing him. They're torturing him with a come along and barbed wire. We assume he does not make it, and they go to this motel in Mexico to get her. By the way, all of this movie entirely shot in Utah. That was not shot in Mexico. That was shot in. It's a place actually called like the Mexico Motel or something. I had written it down and I forgot to keep it on this set of notes. But so all this
very famous location.
Well, it's right,
Lloyd.
Yes. It means birth mother, I think.
And Brian, what is famous about this location?
Well, it was in Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the showdown is. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's in the motel, and the doctor is going to perform this backwoods Mexican cesarean on her to get the baby out. Taye Diggs has paid this whoremonger. It's a brothel. It's
the brothel. Yeah.
Right.
Of course it is.
To have this kid there. We do get a great moment where Parker and Longbaugh show up, and the bar is filled with Mexican whores. And as the whores run out, because they tell them to get out, one of the girls runs past, and Del Toro slaps her in the ass. That was not scripted, and she was not happy about that.
Right.
She apparently
McQuarrie suggested that he do that.
McQuarrie suggested it. Del Toro said, "I don't want to do that." He said, "Just do it." He slaps her on the ass. They finish the scene. She comes back around and starts screaming at Del Toro, and he points to McQuarrie and says, "He made me do it." So I thought that was pretty funny. So this is a part of the film we kind of talked about. It essentially boils down to this great kind of cat and mouse scene where they're trying to get to her, and meanwhile, Taye Diggs is still alive, but so is James Caan. James Caan shows up with his men, which we referred to earlier, is literally a group of guys James Caan's age. Now, this is James Caan 22 years ago, but the motherfucker was 60 years old then.
Yeah.
So it's a bunch of older guys who are probably bagmen along with him. These are the Parker and Longbows of their time in their twilight, but they're still doing it, right? And they've all got little snub-nosed revolvers, shotguns and stuff. They're all wearing members-only jackets. They are all dressed in the colors of a grandfather: gray, beige, tans. The colors we're all going to retire to at some point when we stop seeing, other colors like that. And Carlos, what happens from this point?
I mean, the C-section scene. I mean, it's a great shootout. This is King Kong versus Godzilla. This is what the entire movie is building to. If you're a fan of crime movies or westerns, it's the final shootout. This is why you paid money to see this movie. And this is and there's a whole tradition of this. This is very. I mean, I guess McQuarrie he bristles when you compare him to Peckinpah, because he's like, I'm not in that guy's league. But yeah, this is the Peckinpah moment. But it's more like Peckinpah in The Getaway, or like Brian said, Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. It's more like the grimy kind.
But also,
if you think about like this is such a cliched ending. I think The Senior Citizens is sort of his joke of it. He knows we're all expecting this, and he makes it a little funny, just like Rob Zombie did in whatever that movie was, The Devil's Rejects 3, whatever the heck it was. But like I took some notes. Like I was sitting there in like a fever dream, because it's been a hell of a week in my house, watching that C-section, that whole thing where it all just converges. And I wrote, like, we've reached another circle of hell. It's complete. Time is a flat circle. It introduces this without pretension, which flies in the face of all the lofty existential dialogue that's been thrown around for 3/4 of this movie. Longbow and Parker at the beginning in the sperm bank are two guys telling jokes. It seems like this is going to be a Tarantino totally dark light comedy at the beginning of this movie. Sarah Silverman's in the first scene. Now we're at the point where a disgraced doctor is being forced at gunpoint to perform a C-section on the woman he got pregnant. So it's like, this is a movie that wasn't made with an audience in mind. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't care if you're lost at this point, or you don't understand exactly what's going on, or what all the character motivations are, but it's the big shootout. It's the big, nicely. I mean, I loved it. I thought this was one of, Unforgiven has a great final shootout, but that has a lot more, of course, emotional baggage and Clint Eastwood and film knowledge and film history in it.
Open Range.
Open Range I was thinking of too. That's another one.
Open Range. Open Range is one of the best shootout scenes in anything.
But this is here. Remember the end of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? That sort of whimsical ending where fire. You know what happens. Well, this shows you what happens. Here's what happened to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid after they emerged from that. After they said a couple of one-liners, after they were in the bar, that sort of thing. And I think it just kicks it up another notch. Yes, all the reloading is really cool, and it's like cowboys and Indians type of thing. When Ryan Philippe jumps in that very famous fountain.
That's a great fucking scene.
He lands in glass, and you're just like, oh, this is, totally unexpected, and just a great action set piece. That's not much action.
Well,
I don't know if like a young kid seeing this today this movie would probably just totally.
Well, it's not
confuse
John
him.
Wick, and I think that's why I love it. It's not that
exactly,
and and I think all that formulaic gun movements that we saw so much in the beginning, we see it so much more. Like, listen, we all know how this was going to end. I think there was no mystery, but we're always hoping, and then it was just all of that mayhem with some of that discipline of the way they fire. All that discipline worked with this mayhem, making it, to me, a very refreshing scene because, again, it seems so real.
A great action scene.
From any other action scene that's out there, especially in 2000. It's definitely more real than even a Tarantino shootout. If you want to compare anything with a Tarantino,
it's a throwback.
This was real.
Yeah. I think one of the best parts about this whole ending bit is that, it's obviously things are getting dire. The C-section is going wrong. Juliette Lewis is like fucking gray. You don't expect her to live. These guys are outnumbering the shit out of them. They're taking them out here and there, but they're taking their licks. They've both been shot a couple times. Mm-hmm. And I love the bit where the way it's shot is like from across the fountain, and Felipe's character runs to get cover in the empty fountain, and they don't show him land. He lands and you just hear him scream. And then the next shot establishes why he screams is because he just landed in a fucking pile of broken glass,
broken bottles,
pulls a giant piece out of his arm. As I watched that, I remember being a kid. And I remember, as kids, we all walked barefoot. And I remember one time I got a piece of broken glass in the bottom of my foot. I was like 7 or 8. I remember pulling that out of my foot and the feeling of like intense fucking pain. And it kind of reminded me of that. But there actually is a little trivia with that. They had labels on the bottles. There was actually, it didn't say who, but maybe Bud or, let's say, Smirnoff. When the companies said, okay, you could use our imaging, our labels in your movie, they didn't know it was for that. So when they showed the movie to these companies, they made them digitally take the names off the labels because they didn't realize they were going to be used as weapons or in a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, everything is falling apart.
Also, a little other trivia to that was, I believe Ryan Philippe asked the prosthetic makeup artist to create where the glass could be pulled out. That was never in the script. That was all Ryan Philippe's idea, either that the night before or that week of, this is what I want. And he got that put into the movie.
He was supposed to be wearing a jacket. Yeah. And Felipe was like, no, let's show it. Let's show the pain he's in. And yeah, that was all him.
Actually,
that was so cringeworthy.
That was totally cringeworthy. Brian, I think this is just an interesting question for you with your job doing that. Do you ever get ideas thrown at you from actors or actresses, and can you act on that, or do you have to go to the director or anything?
Here's the thing, maybe not in the world I'm in right now because I'm working for other people, but yeah, I've definitely worked with actors and on smaller movies, like Stakeland, we would go to the bar every night and come up with ideas and bring them the next day or rehash things out. Yeah, there was definitely but it's usually on a smaller movie and when I'm more personal into which is why I love Ryan Philippe in this movie, because I think that's cool. Because as a makeup artist, I think one of the greatest makeups is Gary Oldman's scar in True Romance. That's probably one of the easiest things in the world to do. It's a material called collodion. It actually shrinks your skin. It does it. But to me, that an actor thinks of stuff like that. I love movies. So if I could actually help an actor, I love when actors want dirty fingernails, and if that helps them get into character, that to me is the coolest thing. I was part of that. Right. I love that. Yeah. That's a huge, and that's half the reason. That raises this a point for me on this movie scale. That stuff that you're all working together to make art. That's so freaking cool.
All right, Manster, I got a question for you. So now we've gotten to the point where these guys are essentially under the gun. They're not going to win. We know that this is going to end the way it's going to end. James Caan takes Ryan Philippe out as he's running away with the money, but he shoots him in the leg. Why doesn't he kill him?
He doesn't need to kill him. He doesn't want to kill him. He just wants to prove a point. He wins, and he can just take this guy down without having to kill him. I love that he doesn't kill him, or he does the same thing to Del Toro.
Do you think, Carlos,
2
that...
knee shots.
Yeah, 2 knee shots, takes him completely down. Do you think he does that with the thought that you're not going to make it out of here alive? Or do you think he does that with the thought of, I don't need to kill you, and maybe we'll see you again some other day?
I never really thought about it. I think it's like a professional courtesy. He's like, you didn't kill my daughter. You guys are going to, you lost, but I respect I respect the fight you put up, and that's that. And what about that? I mean, just from a cinematic standpoint. Well, it's the code, yeah. But when Benicio del Toro turns around and like his whole character, both those characters are summed up by that great shot when he goes to fire and he's just out of bullets.
Yeah.
And it's like he knows he just stands there and he makes it seem like he knows he's done. And then Khan shoots him, which is a great shot. Because you feel that, like you feel. I've never been shot in the leg, but I imagine it's not pleasant. I love that. That's another thing that this movie just gets raised up. I think a lot of people miss. I think the positives of this movie outweigh the negatives, and I kind of wish like this movie had more of a following, but it just kind of doesn't.
No, it's a cult film.
Well, I will say this: it's late to say this, but if you're listening to this episode of Pint of Comics and you are interested in Way of the Gun, I can tell you that you can go to Tubi. If you don't have Tubi, it's a awesome free app that you could put on your Fire Stick. I have a Fire Stick. I'm sure Roku. It is also available on Pluto TV. You can just go under their library of movies and watch it for free. Ads will pop up maybe every 15 or 20 minutes. They're very quick. They don't cut anything out. The Tubi is not a sponsor. But I think if you're looking to watch movies and you're looking for another outlet that's not Netflix or not, one of the pay ones, Tubi and Pluto are pretty dope. So check those out. All right. So yeah,
if Carlos, he'll probably let you borrow his copy.
You can send me like $5 in a self-addressed stamped envelope.
But guess what? I own it,
SASE.
and I watched it on Pluto.
Yeah, well, I watched it on Pluto on Tubi, and the reason is that I had seen this years ago, and I was telling Lloyd before we recorded. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, I saw it in like the $5 bin at Walmart, and I went, I remember that. I want to check it out again. I bought it. Have not watched it, since I bought it. Threw it in my DVD player or Blu-ray player. Doesn't fucking work. It just locks up at the menu. So fuck you, Walmart. I want my $6 back. We essentially leave this movie off where Sarno wins. His daughter gets away. The money is collected by the ambulance drivers. They go away. Parker and Longbaugh are on the ground. You're assuming they're dying. I'm going to go to each one of you and ask you what you think. Manster, starting with you. Do these guys die lying there, or do they live to see another day?
I think if they could just get up and get some help, they would live. But I don't know that they can do that. So probably going to die there.
Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, they died or they lived. It's the end of this story. So however you want to take that. I mean, part of me wants them to die. Yeah, I think they died, but I don't think they died.
All right. That was a double negative. Carlos, what do you got?
I think they're dead as Dillinger, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they're buzzard meat. I think that they're even if you can say at the end they have that minor change of heart, too little too late, I think is the lesson maybe we learn there in this one. But who knows?
Don't kidnap 9-month pregnant women in the third trimester. Don't do that.
Well, no, don't be shits your entire life and then decide all of a sudden to turn it around because it might not go your way. I think that their final act being, kind of ensuring that she lives. I do want to say, because we did skip over it, Taye Diggs has 2 very memorable deaths in movies that you think the whole time he's going to be a major problem and he's not. One of us is a movie called Equilibrium, where he plays the bad guy in the whole movie. He's like the bad guy's main muscle, and Christian Bale is the hero. And when they finally fight, Christian Bale kills him immediately with a sword through the head. So they build this up that when these guys fight, it's gonna fucking go. And when they finally fight, Christian Bale kills him right off the bat. In this one, you're thinking, well, there's going to be some huge payback component for the Nicky Cat character. No, the doctor pulls the same gun that Carlos mentioned earlier out of the bag and very quickly shoots Tay Diggs in the throat. And he just like has this like very sad kind of dying scene where he's just all eyes. It's all eyes.
He wants to say something, but he can't.
He can't say anything. He can't say "fuck you guys." He can't say "help me." He's just dying with his eyes. And I thought that was pretty powerful. He's a pretty good actor. But I thought it was funny that you have these two movies where you kind of build this guy up and he kind of gets killed in a very strange or easy way. All right, so these guys are dead meat. Let's go real quick to the Manster. Let's talk about the box office in 2000. What came out at the same time as Way of the Gun? What was this thing competing with?
Well, at the same time, I'll give you some other number one first week movies there. You had Nurse Betty. That was number 2 that week at 7 million in its first week. And number 1 that week was The Watcher. The Watcher.
Oh, that's Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves, man.
James Spader. Yeah.
9 million. So for reference, Way of the Gun came in at number 9 that week at 2.15 million. And ahead of it, other than those two, the great movie The Cell.
Oh, what a fucking
Yeah, The Cell. Bring It On, another one. So what landed below that movie that week was Highlander Endgame in its second week.
Of course.
Yep. The Replacements in its 5th week.
Fuck, Keanu Reeves was busy that
Keanu
week.
Reeves,
Yeah, right.
wow.
Yeah.
And The Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps,
Oif.
in its 7th week.
Oif.
And you got to think
Just
like
barely beat it out.
they dumped this movie, you know, in those days, released a movie in September. That's nothing. If you those other movies aren't exactly
September.
Academy Award.
September is absolute dump area. January.
And then by the end of the month, The Exorcist remake had made more money than Way of the Gun. I'm sorry, not The Exorcist remake. When they had re-released The Exorcist. Yeah, that by the end of September was like Way of the Gun and was like 23rd of all these. Everything beat it, including a re-release of The Exorcist. So it did not do well.
No.
Critically too. I mean, I was going back and reading some of the reviews of it. It's like, I mean, the New York press attacked it for homophobia. Like they were, way ahead of the game. And they called out Bryan Singer and McQuarrie for The Usual Suspects on the same thing. But like the AV Club 21 years ago, back when they were print, devoid of even one sympathetic character, sluggishly paced, full of unnecessary subplots. Way of the Gun is bad enough to suggest that 3 films into his career, McQuarrie's best moments are already behind him. Stephen Farber from Movie Line, who was a good writer back in the day, back when film critics were actually journalists. The plot is almost as convoluted as the story in The Usual Suspects, but McQuarrie substitutes revolting buckets of blood for the style and wit of The Usual Suspects. Good performances. Ryan Philippe, though, seems to have studied in the Keanu Reeves school of sleepwalking. So, like, even McQuarrie himself, him and the composer during the whole commentary on the DVD, the running joke is how no one's seen this movie. Like, this is a year after a movie that put him in director jail for the next 12 years. So it's sort of sad to listen to. But he's like, critics didn't kill my film. The shitty marketing didn't kill it. I killed it when I set out to make a film that lectured instead of entertained. Bottom line, most people just didn't like it. That's like his final thought on Way of the Gun. And he did a Facebook roundtable with a bunch of screenwriters just recently in the last, like during the COVID crap. And he says, it's interesting, Brian, because Joe would talk about trying to get his scripts made. He's like, I couldn't get work. I couldn't do anything for years. And finally, I went to it. I stopped trying to sell. I stopped trying to get my movie made. I stopped trying to get the movie made that I wanted to see. I started to ask them, how can I help you make your movie? And that's how he parlayed that into script doctoring. So he's like, here's what I bring to the table. And that launched him into the whole thing. And somewhere along the line, Tom Cruise picked him out of obscurity, essentially, and made him a session player, like that. He owes Tom Cruise everything.
The whole thing about the Mission Impossible movies is up until he took over, it was a different director every time.
every time.
Every time. That was kind of almost a gimmick at one point. And you got to assume that Cruise has a lot of trust in him. And I mean, I will say, I am a fan of those movies that, some are better than others, but the ones he's done have been really fucking good. In my opinion, he's able to handle the action stuff. He's able to handle, the kind of quieter stuff as well. Master, do you have the year for that year or no?
Yeah, I got some year stuff. So
All right.
that year it came in at number 146, making a total of 6 million. 6 million domestic anyway. So ahead
What's
of that,
its budget? What was its budget again? Do we know?
Yeah, I have that.
I heard its
budget was 8.5 million.
Oof.
So it made 6 million domestic and it made 13.2 worldwide.
Okay.
Yeah. But so number 53 that year, Dude, Where's My Car? Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps, again at number 16.
This
Traffic,
is why I'm so bitter.
another Benicio del Toro movie, came in at number 15. Number 4, Gladiator. Number 3, Mission Impossible 2. Number 2, Castaway. And number 1, How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh, God, the public's a bunch of monkeys.
Oh, isn't it? My kids love that movie.
Never saw
That's
it.
a rough one. That's a rough one to sit through with all the
it's
Jim
hard.
Carrey stuff.
Never saw it. I like Jim Carrey, but sometimes I'm not a big.
My niece would watch that every day. Had nothing to do with Christmas, so I pretty much know that movie by heart.
Yeah.
You're a mean one.
Now you got the newer one too.
Hey, just a couple of random things. Macquarie says his inspiration was Bad Day at Black Rock. He's older than all 5 of us. And Magnificent Seven. He was a big fan of John Sturges, who also did The Great Escape, and then late in his career, Joe Kidd with Clint Eastwood. He says some shots are directly ripped off from Bad Day at Black Rock. And again, he says the whole thing, the C-section thing, the whole movie is about how he couldn't get a movie made, and if he wanted to get something made, they would take it away from him, like the baby is taken away or was going to be taken away, and you're watching somebody just butcher your baby. Like that's the whole that was his inspiration. Is like it was trying to get a movie made in Hollywood. So it's like dark and kind of bitter.
Yeah, it's extremely bitter, especially since no matter how bad he thought he had it, then he's writing Top Gun 2, so he's okay.
It is crazy how he came back, but kind of basically just sold out, I guess, if you want to be cynical about it.
Yeah, I mean to an extent, but you know what? Maybe all those years of like not doing anything after this, he's almost like the characters in this. Do you fight every day for your lunch, or do you take the big score? And I think
also he brings some realism to some of these, Mission Impossible. It's over the top, but he does bring some groundedness to it, which I think is a positive thing.
Yeah, and I never saw the second one. I actually liked the first Jack Reacher quite a bit. I thought it was a pretty solid, kind of a crime, spy thriller. All right, so here's the important part where we get to rate it. On the Pint Movie Invitationals, we rate all movies on a 0 to 5 scale, quarter and half scale optional. We leave our guest for last, and that would be Carlos this time. So I'm going to go first to his partner in crime, Mr. Brian Spears. Brian, what do you give on a scale of 0 to 5, 2000's Way of the Gun?
1 0 5 4.
Goes with a 4. All right. A solid 4 for Mr. Spears.
Well, I just don't want to do a quarter of something. I don't know, man. Like it's a number. What the heck, man? It's 1 through 4. Why? What's so 1.25?
The quarters and halves help me a lot because I use Letterboxd, and when you use Letterboxd and I watch movies and I rate them, I find so often that the difference between a 3 and a 3 1/4 to me is huge. You know what I mean? Or the difference
I don't want to say it's a 3. I mean, it's less than a 4, but it's not a 3. But
you could go quarter scale. Come on.
Then I'd say it's 3.75.
All right. Perfect. You're using the rules that we established here. All right.
What's the measurement? Are we doing this in Scary Larry Dwyer heads? Is that what it is?
Sperm bank deposits.
Yeah, we don't do that. We don't do that on these, but we could do that here. How many loads? All right. So I'll go next to go to the man.
Shell loads.
Yeah.
Bullet
loads. All right. I did see this when it came out, not in the theaters. I saw it years ago. Had enough of a passing interest in it to buy it, even though it was a defective fucking copy, Walmart. But sat down and watched it the other night. I did enjoy a lot about it, but there are just too many misconnections in this thing for me. Character building doesn't really exist. I don't need to know the answer to everything. I do like stuff like the Baltimore thing. I like that. I like that we're saying this happened in Baltimore and never find that out. But then there are other things that just seem way too coincidental to me, aka James Caan being the father of the Juliette Lewis character. Geoffrey Lewis, which it's great to see him again. I rest his soul. I do love that guy, but I really don't think his character has much gas in this thing. I go with a 3. I give this a solid 3. I enjoy it. There's a lot of dialogue stuff I enjoy, but in the end of the day, I can think of better crime thrillers that I enjoy more. But I do like it, and I will say it gives me, he's hit a button, right? I like Judge Dredd.
Treasure to me. I love Judge Dredd. I absolutely love.
I do. I'm not gonna lie. I love Judge Dredd because Judge Dredd.
Well, we didn't have to give that a number, though.
No, we didn't have to give it a number. But Judge Dredd also knows what it is and just goes out there and plays it. But I will give you credit, Carlos. Most people, when we put that episode out, were like, "You're fucking idiot." So I can handle that. All right, Manster. What do you? I know Manster. I can read Manster. Now I'm not going to influence Manster. This is at best a 3 for the Manster. Manster, what are you giving this thing?
Well, you'll be surprised, I think. So it's definitely got some good acting in it. Some great action sequences. I really enjoyed, the coordinated movements and all the gunplay and all that stuff they did. To me, it does have a convoluted plot that could have been tightened up. They could have dropped some things. I think maybe more people might have tuned in a little longer if they had tightened that up just a couple notches. It does suffer from kind of a meager character development. We know who these guys are, and they don't change at all, but that's just what it is. It's no big deal. I had fun watching this movie when I didn't fall asleep. They say adjudicated about 10 fucking times, and that fucking bugged the hell out of me.
Oh yeah, adjudicated.
I give it a 3.5. Even with all those negative things I said, it was enjoyable and I liked it.
Let's get to the guest on this episode, Mr. Carlos Danger. Now, before we have his rating, once again, check the Mobile Horror Companion out. Great local podcast, good friends of ours, and we love what you guys do over there. Keep it up. Give me something to listen to week by week because I always enjoy it.
Yeah, nice short ones. That's great.
What was it? Yeah, I don't like the short ones, I like the longer ones.
Yeah, I mean, I give it I won't keep you in suspense. I give it 4 out of 5. I think a lot of the negatives are negatives, but to me, this movie is its own thing. And a lot of things that would traditionally be negatives in a movie, I dig it. I dig it, man. Way of the Gun is its own thing. And I think if you want something a little different, seek it the fuck out.
All right, Brian's got his hand up. Brian, what do you got going on?
I think the reason it's so good is there's not character development. Like, no, like backstory. There's tons of character development.
It's all there already. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I just think so, there's no mystery to this movie. It is what it is right on the screen.
Yeah.
No, I see that.
I think one of the things I have an issue with this movie, and I don't need the shootout scene every other scene. I don't need that. But it just seems like it goes into these lulls at moments. And
I think that's the genre, though. We got to point out that's the genre. That's film noir. That goes back to the 40s, where it's just you're hanging out with these people, and there's that impending sense of doom. Sometimes it's more about what's not happening. Like you have a feeling it's not going to go well for them, and that's sort of the tradition. I think you have to, if you know that going in, it might help a reaction to it a little bit. But to me, again, that's a positive. That's what I like about it.
I also think if you cleaned up some of these things we're complaining about, I don't think the movie would be as good.
I think it's better than The Usual Suspects now. I'd rather watch I'll watch Way of the Gun any day of the week over The Usual Suspects.
All right, that's a strong statement. So
or Shawshank Redemption.
Well,
stop it now. Come on.
Yes, who likes that movie?
Who doesn't like that movie?
It's okay.
Oh, good.
It's overrated. That's the most overrated movie. Like, right besides that and Forrest Gump are like, come on, man.
Cut about 20 minutes out of this movie, and my score goes up.
My score at a 3 is only a 3 because of the gunfight at the end. It'd be a 2.5 without the gunfight.
Yeah.
It'd be a 2.5 without the gunfight.
I mean, our scores range from 3 to 4 out of 5. So we're not saying it's bad at all. We all enjoyed it.
It's interesting because I
also don't think it's everyone's cup of tea.
I did an unscientific Twitter poll, and it was like 42% were meh, and then like 42% were like it's good. It actually kind of totally, and then there was like 17% that said it's a classic. So that's a true cult film. You can't ask any more for a cult film. The word cult film is thrown around so much these days. I think I've learned through researching it and this talking to you guys, this is a true cult film.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'll wear it proudly.
Absolutely. And I'll say it is the best thing we've ever gotten out of Ryan Philippe, who at the time...
I thought you were going to say this is the best Pint movie invitational you've done. I was waiting for it.
It's been a great one. I will say it's been a great one.
It is.
When Ryan Philippe came out, you knew that this kid had leading star potential, leading actor potential. And again, yes, he was a MacGruber. MacGruber is one of the most underrated great comedies of the last 15 years.
Agree on that. Yeah.
Point at anything in the room and I'll fuck it.
He's never done anything good.
It's kind of sad. Yeah.
He's sort of like early Brad Pitt, like too pretty for the, but you know who he is? He's Vinny Chase from
Entourage. Yeah.
Like that's the problem. Like he kind of, he just takes the roles his agents give him.
If this movie, again, I think we said it earlier, if this movie had hit somehow, which I don't see how this movie ever would have hit, to be honest with you, it doesn't have enough of a broad appeal to hit. Right. And that might be commentary on audiences, and that's fine. But if this movie had hit, I think it would have afforded him more of roles along this line.
And I don't mean to drag this out, but I think another theory I have is that had this movie came out in 2000, Reservoir Dogs was 92, Pulp Fiction's 94, maybe had it been released in like 93, 94, 95, there would have been a better reaction to it, perhaps. Because, I mean, that's one of the things that everybody drags on this movie is that it's too late, that fad had passed, this is just garbage, nobody would give it a chance. I kind of think maybe it would have found a bigger audience.
I agree with you.
I think 7 years earlier.
But
it would have found an audience because it's not a date movie. This is a really it's really
frustrating. It's a frustrating movie.
Maybe if this movie was made in the middle 90s, like you were just saying, it would have been dismissed as, even though it has nothing to do with it, as a Tarantino knockoff, like Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. Stuff like that was coming out and everybody was going, that's a Tarantino knockoff. Now, I think what's a better idea, Carlos, is if this movie came out in the 70s, would it be a better remembered movie? Because
it would.
Because it shares a lot of the through lines with films from that time. All right. So you guys, Mobile Horror Companion, thank you so much for coming on. Brian, I want you to pick a movie.
That's what I want to bring up with you.
Yeah.
All right. I don't want to pick a movie. I want you two to pick one of my movies, and I'll come on and we'll watch one of my movies that you guys choose, and I'll talk about it, and I'll give you behind the scenes things.
All right. Yeah. I'm already leaning towards Stakeland because that was fucking dope. That was
all right. We're doing Stakeland.
How about Depraved though?
Depraved's great too.
Stakeland has better behind the scenes stories. So I don't want to spoil anything.
We'll do an interesting Pint Movie Invitational. Brian has had us pick. We'll do Stakeland with Brian, and Carlos is obviously welcome to come on to that one as well. All right. So thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
Manster, why don't you read off all that good stuff about Pint of Comics?
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all those places where you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can get a podcast there and video reviews. On Facebook and Twitter, it's at Pint of Comics. On Instagram, it's at Pint_O_comics. And to tell you the truth, I don't think this is a brains kind of operation. See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over. Nothing is over. Nothing. You just don't turn it off.